How you doing,
Yeah!
man?
I've been
All
looking
right.
forward to this.
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. Welcome. We're very excited. We're back here and ready to go for Ready Player 2. Another what are we on mission 5 now? Ready to go in our playthrough of Detroit Become Human?
Mission 5, yes, sir. Good
Yes.
times. Ready to
Mission
continue
5.
the David Cage saga.
Yes, that's
The
what
most
it says
important
under. It
thing
says
is not to
Detroit
live,
parentheses
but to
Become
have a
Human
reason to
colon
live.
the David Cage saga
That's a quote from
semicolon
David
the
Cage is a
greatest writer in
god.
the entire world.
Yes.
Right. Exactly.
By the way, as we jump back into this, I just want to say as you posted in our Discord, and I'll post a link to our Discord chat if you want to, like, if you're hearing us talk now and you've listened to the podcast or anything like that, and you want to like get in behind the scenes and be able to reach out to us and tell us we're fucking wrong or we're complete idiots, or that you're our biggest fan and you want to buy us dope Christmas presents.
Yes. Specifically
Beer is
that.
appreciated.
Yeah.
Reach out on our Discord. But anyway, in our Discord, Craig Mack, recently you posted that article that shows that Detroit has now hit new sales milestone, right?
Yes. Yeah. So they actually just hit a couple of big milestones for them in terms of their number of sales, which was pretty funny because it immediately precipitated, like, once that went out, people tweeted to David Cage and were basically like, so did it make money though? Because you're just saying like sales numbers, and like
right.
he immediately responded with like, well, we're really happy that we were able to engage a lot of people and like maybe change some hearts and thoughts and stuff like that, and that's all that matters. so I guess they didn't make any money because I would assume he would have responded with, yeah, man, we fucking made some money, son. But the fact
I don't
that
know though, but like it's not like a movie, right? Where you make like $3 million and they're like, yeah, but it cost you, $50 million to make it to these special effects. Like everything's done with developers and animated stuff. So, if you passed 2 million in sales,
right?
And it's the fastest that let's see, what is this? It's Detroit is Quantic Dream's fastest selling game ever. And we know that Heavy Rain did well. Well, we assume Heavy Rain did well, right? Because that was their big thing, and the studios kept putting out games. So on some level, you got to assume they're profitable. I think he just didn't want to get into that.
Probably. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm on one hand, I'm definitely I'm kind of kidding and making fun of him, because that's the whole like, hey, like you're a super nice person. Wait, but am I good looking? I mean, really good, like really funny though, like real funny, dude. I'm like, what the fuck? You didn't answer the question. I'm ugly then. Shit. Like, it's whatever. It is what it is, David Cage. We get it. But I mean, I get that there's like weirder costs associated with video games than there are with movies, because you do have extended the extended timeline that it takes to make these games, and the fact that you have the number of people and studios that could be involved in these games. So the games can cost a lot of money. Also, they're making $60 on a game or $40 or whatever versus only $12 on a movie ticket, right? So I mean, things are skewed in the benefit of a game to make money back faster. So it's great news for them, and I do think that while obviously yes, Heavy Rain was profitable over the course of time, that was obviously has been on sale. That was on sale for much longer into the PS3's life cycle. But this game only came out when it came out obviously earlier this year, not long ago.
Yeah.
So for it to already hit that point means that they're doing something right.
Great.
And I do know. And something that's going to come up just in case, if you only come to us for the Ready Player 2 shit and you don't necessarily know a lot about the Live from the Man Cave podcast that we also do, one of the big things, we talk about a lot of different shit, but we also get a lot into video games. It's a big thing. It's kind of one of the things that is one of our hot buttons, in terms of our excitement. But one of the things that we will talk about coming up very soon as we get close to the end of the year is just kind of our thoughts on games of the year and stuff like that, movies of the year, TV shows of the year and whatever. And one of the interesting things to note is that Detroit Become Human is on quite a bit of people's top 10 lists, like as they're starting to roll out now towards the end of the year, and that last kind of month leading up to Christmas. A lot of pretty big outlets have this game in their up there, at least in their top 10. If it's not their best game of the year, it's definitely up there in their top 10 of saying, hey, it's a great story, or we like this, or we think the gameplay, the way the gameplay is, kind of meshed with the story and so on and so forth. So it bodes well for them to see that a game like this, that as divisive as it may have been early on, as definitely over time has started to kind of click with more and more people, and is really people dig the story that he's telling, which I think that's pretty cool. So it's good.
So to our friend of the show, Dodicus,
yes.
I want to say we were right definitively that this is a good game, and you were wrong, my friend.
We can't necessarily say that. It is a fucking opinion. That is okay.
I know.
But any opportunity
I'm just giving him shit.
Any opportunity that I am given to say, Dodicus, you're fucking wrong, I will certainly take it. Even if I agree with him, I will throw him under the bus because that shit's just fun to do. So I don't necessarily know yet if we have officially introduced ourselves. I am Craig Mack. You are Serious Jest.
Serious Jest!
And we are live from the Man Cave. This is what we do.
Yes.
This is our side project where we basically just find reasons to be like, leave me alone, honey. I'm downstairs in the Man Cave playing video games. It's for the podcast. So that's what we're doing tonight, is getting through the next chapter of this game. But the most important thing, which really started, yes, we're big into video games. Yes, we're big into talking about shit, movies and TV shows that we like, and making fun of celebrities and whatever that might be. But the main reason that all that stuff started was because we really, 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 really like to drink beer, first and foremost.
Yes.
Every single time we do one of those, yes, we have a beer of the show. So
I'm looking at this beer like I'm about to fuck you up.
What is your beer of the show, dude? I want to know. I need to know.
I want to read the short description of it, and then I'll tell you the name of it.
Perfect.
All right. This one, I'll tell you the brewer first, because we still haven't. We need to. This is a future Man Cave trip. We're gonna visit their goddamn brewery in Cooperstown. This is an Ommegang beer.
Ommegang, yes.
All right.
Yep.
And the description of this beer is, it's a beer for Daenerys, a blend of delicately smoked porter and tart cherry creek, brewed for those who nurture dragons. At 6.8% alcohol by volume, this is the Game of Thrones Royal Reserve Collection. Yes. Mother of Dragons. Next time, wait until the teacher calls on you, Craig, before I just shout out the answer.
No, that's the only way I can show I'm smart, is if I say the answer before I get called on.
The long description of it is probably worth reading because it just makes it sound even more delicious. As the War for the Seven Kingdoms rages to a climax, Ommegang presents the Royal Reserve Collection. This collection of 4 exclusive and extremely limited release ales, available in 2018, is brewed as an homage to the 4 epic figures still standing against the annihilation of mankind. Mother of Dragons, a beer for Daenerys, is a richly complex blend of smoked porter and Belgian Kriek. It pours a deep ruby brown with alluring aromas of tart cherry, dark roast, and hints of smoke. Mother of Dragons is the 3rd release in our Royal Reserve Collection. These are beers representing what a court brewer would offer a noble lord or lady. Perfect balance and pure drinking pleasure. I cannot wait to drink this. It's a big fucking bottle, and I am going to drink the fuck out of this.
Nice.
And, alright, so just cracked it open, and that, so the smell coming from the bottle immediately is like this rich, like ale. It's it's just like a very, it's what you expect from Ommegang, these collections, right? You definitely smell the porter.
Right.
It smells like that kind of like a burnt or caramelized ale.
Yep.
And then the cherry note hits you. So very subtle, just in the smell. And I haven't even drank it yet. Let me try. Have you had this?
I have not. I am very excited.
So, you know, I'm a big fan. Like, on the show, the first time that I tasted a beer that changed flavors in my mouth, I think was the Noel Baladin.
Yep.
The Christmas beer.
Yep.
And around Christmas season, I guess this is the theme. Beers that change. So the first thing that hits you, again, is just like the smell. The porter taste comes in. I'm not familiar with what a Belgian Kriek is, but hey, it's good.
Right.
And then right after that, it actually took. This is my memory of this first swig I took. I got hit with the ale. I was like, wow, this is smooth. This is nice. You could tell it's sitting right around 6.8. It tastes about like what the ABV you would expect it to taste.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, the cherry tart flavor just like bum rushed in.
Right.
Like just came right in, right. So it's like it wasn't a slow change in taste. It was like a blitz. So it's nice though.
The Kriek which is it's a lambic, and they're typically like they are your fruity kind of sour beers. A lot of times they are like it's like it'll be like a lot of them are cherry, but I mean you can do them. We've actually had on the show. We've tried different kinds of sours before, or at least you and I have. I don't necessarily know if we have.
Yeah,
done
and
one
you
on
know
the
I'm
show,
not a
but
fan of the sours.
Right,
I made it known I'm not a fan of the sours, but this is fucking great because of the contrast.
Right. The contrast again. So yeah, they're mixing a creek with a porter, which is giving you that sour flavor, but having that back end similar to like what we've talked about before. The reason why you and I like the Warlock so much is because you're mixing like a pumpkin ale, but with a stout, so you're getting that contrast instead of that, instead of where they're moving in parallel, they're kind of perpendicular to one another, so you get a nice little contrast that adds to the benefit of the flavor, which is great.
Oh god damn, this is fucking good, Craig. This shit might be gone like halfway through.
Nice. Oh man.
All right, what are you drinking?
All right, so mine is also another brewer that you and I are going to have to make a trip to at some point. These guys are they're based out in what is it, Somerdale, New Jersey, I believe. I'm trying to look. Yep, Somerdale, New Jersey. And this is Flying Fish.
Never even heard of that.
Flying Fish is obviously.
I know Flying Fish.
Yep.
I don't remember
Somerdale. Yeah. So Flying Fish is a brewer that we've had a couple times on this show before. We've talked about. We've had many of their beers before, and then we've obviously both had them off, separate, just kind of hanging out as well. This one, I'll do kind of similar to you. I'll kind of read off the information about it and then tell you what it is. But this one is their Belgian-style golden ale. Showcases a variety of the ingredients and brewing methods that help differentiate Flying Fish beers. This one is fermented at a higher temperature than our other beers, adding an undercurrent of fruitiness and clove, although interestingly there is no fruit or spice in the beer. It exhibits complex mouthfeel, strong malt flavors, and spicy hop presence, and a soothing alcohol warmth, followed by a clean, dry finish. It is excellent with food as well as served just by itself. This one is it's 6.9% ABV. And it is typically brewed. It's available only between November 1st and February 1st. So it's clearly it's their winter beer. This one is the Grand Cru Winter Reserve.
Did you know the motto of Detroit is?
This one is I went kind of the opposite of you. Yeah, that one I went the opposite of you. You went more the kind of porter and fruity. This one is more on the it's ale and obviously no fruit specifically in it, but has like that kind of fruity flavor based on the way that they brewed it at a higher temperature to kind of get to unlock some like additional flavoring to it. So this one, when you smell it, you get right out of the gate, you get kind of you get a little bit of that more spiciness. You don't really pick up the smell of the fruit. You pick up a little bit more like a clove smell to it. And again, even though there aren't spices in it, you definitely can almost smell, that there would be some type of like a spice, like a clove. You're kind of traditional as you're having a winter beer. They either go the route of having like a nutmeg and that kind of spice in it, or they go like the cloves, more of like an actual, like by spice I mean spicy as opposed to having spices in it. This one has a little bit more of that smell to it.
And this is the Grand Cru Winter Reserve?
Grand Cru Winter Reserve.
That bottle looks awesome.
The
logo reminds me of it reminds me of Bonefish Grill.
Yes.
The logo, like they might sell those at Bonefish, right?
Their picture is basically it's a flying it's a fish with wings, but it's the skeleton if you have not seen it. So this one is their Winter Reserve.
Did you know Detroit was
basically, this is your
railroad?
Perfect
A route
winter
for slaves
beer
escaping
because
into Canada during
the benefit
the
to this, and
Civil
I will
War?
tell you. So I have had this one before, and I actually I just picked it up today and put it on tap in the man cave. So that's how much I like this one.
Nice.
I actually like one, and the reason why I like this one is yes, we've all talked many times before about like Mad Elf and things like that, like other winter
Love
beers
Mad
that you
Elf.
can have. Yeah, they're amazing, but you probably don't want to have them on tap in your house. Because number one, it's 11%. Well,
Mad Elf, I would.
I've done it before.
I'm a savage.
Right. I've done it before, and you've
done it before.
Yeah, you've been in my house when I had it. But the thing is, so the two things about it is, number one, it's very strong in alcohol, right? And so that's one thing to it that you have to kind of determine.
Which I like.
I have responsibilities, but I'm okay with this too.
It's Christmas.
Fuck it. Right, yeah, Santa will take over responsibilities for me.
Santa will raise my children.
Exactly. Yeah. Is that a new T-shirt?
Yeah,
Santa will raise my children on the back. Life in the Man Cave. So on the other hand, the other thing about it is for a lot of people is the fruity flavor part of it, which although I love that, there is an element of like the fruit stacks, right? It stacks upon itself, and it does start to get to the point where someone's like, I can have like one or two of these, but by the third one, if I'm just like hanging out at a Christmas party, it starts to just taste like it almost becomes like fruit juice because it just like the sugar just coats your tongue and it starts to sit too heavily in your mouth. So a lot of people are like, that's why those are perfect, because when they're 11%, like you sip on it, so it takes you a long time to finish one, but it doesn't stack up as much. But if you had it on as a sixtel in your house, like you're going to be drinking that for 3-4 months, right? So that, whereas this one, because it's not the fruity side, it's a little bit more on the spiciness side, meaning like the clove side and that type. You get that more of a drinkable kind of sessionable flavor, meaning like over the course of a month and a half, you can have multiple people come over to your house for Christmas parties, stuff like that. Drink this over the course of a night, sitting down next to your like fireplace or your heater if you don't have a fireplace or whatever, and it'll taste amazing throughout the entire winter months, and you'll never get to the point where you're like, fuck, why did I get a sixtel of this? Because it's just like, it's too much, right? And so this beer is a perfect winter beer for that because it fills you up, it warms you up. It is like it's like right around that 6.8 or whatever, so it's like perfect amount where you're like not going to get too fucked up, but just enough to feel good and fall asleep in front of the TV watching your favorite Christmas movie or whatever. But also you'll be able to drink it into January and still be able to enjoy it, and not feel like, oh man, I wish I didn't do this to myself. So I love this beer. I highly recommend it. It's an awesome winter beer, and if you're going to a Christmas party, this is a great one to bring because almost anyone who likes, good to great beer will love this, as opposed to something like, obviously like a Mad Elf is something that like, people who love good beer will drink that, or people who love great beer will drink that, but you can't just bring that to a friend's house who's like, I like Yuengling, because they're going to think that shit tastes horrible because it's going to be too heavy, too strong, too much for them, all that. This is the kind of thing that like you can kind of get anyone to at least try it because it's not too much of a punch in the mouth. So I'm excited about drinking this one throughout this game.
Get excited, bro. So, all right. So let's talk about. I'll give you a quick breakdown of like what in case you're not familiar with this series. Our format is basically we do a little talking in the beginning, and with us, a little talking always turns into a lot of talking. But we love beer, and we like beer. We like beer. But yeah, we're not violating. Woo. But so we talk, we do the beer of the show. We talked about the general, Detroit, whatever was in the news on it. We don't always go this long in the beginning, right. But the breakdown normally is Craig is going to play through this game that I have already played through before.
Yes.
We're all going to watch him do it. So the first part of this is him going through the game, making his choices. My comments will be, sporadic here and there, wherever they're at, but it'll be mostly focused on the gameplay. All right. When that's over with, then we chose this game because it relates to a lot of real life subjects and issues, or we'll just talk about how the game made us feel, whatever came up. We do one mission at a time. This is going to be mission 5. All right, and then Craig can give you background. So for the rest of the series, I encourage you, if you really want to get continuity on this game, go back and watch. Yes. These are all on YouTube, youtube.com/livemancave. You can go back and watch missions 1 through 4. Yeah. We're about to play 5 today, so Craig can catch you up on. Today's mission 5 is going to be all dealing with the character Marcus, who is played by Jesse Williams, who's done what is ER or General Hospital, one of those.
General Hospital, I believe.
You recognize him.
Go back to earlier shows. We already looked it up and told you then. We obviously don't remember the things we talk about.
I can look it up.
We get drunk.
IMDb's
So most important thing I will tell you is that to Jeff's point, I strongly recommend this more so than even our podcast.
Grey's Anatomy. We missed them all, by the way.
All
of them were wrong.
We knew
Grey's Anatomy.
We knew it was some hospital bullshit, so it's fine. It doesn't matter.
He was also in Lee Daniels' The Butler and The Cabin in the Woods. So, I mean, it's not just from those.
Oh, fuck. I should have remembered him from that because that's one of my favorite Halloween horror movies.
The Cabin in the Woods?
So, Cabin in the Woods.
The Cabin in the Woods?
Amazing. Yeah, I love that movie.
I never watched it.
Yeah, he's one of the boys that goes to the party. Fuck! All right, well, anyway, we can talk about that shit another time. But, so, more so than our podcast, because our podcast is specifically developed in such a way, or we created it in such a way where you can come on board today. You can come on board and go back in time and listen to the first episode and work your way forward. Like any episode is kind of a jumping on point. This, because of the nature of this, moving forward, like you are not going to want to just jump in. If this is the first episode you're listening to, we recommend you go onto YouTube, check the earlier episodes. You can hear kind of what's happening, because you're just not going to get what's happening in the game if you just jump on right now. So,
although to be fair, as the guy who's actually played the game before, right, what you're saying is generally true. But in this case, I might as well just like what this particular character has dealt with up until this point. So if you don't want to know, turn it off. Well, go back and watch the old ones.
I was going. Go ahead. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Like up until now, like as far as like if you're watching this live and you're like, I'd rather watch this live so I can jump in and comment and stuff like that, you really haven't missed that much to this point on this character that you're not gonna be able to follow what's gonna happen now. And basically, we'll tell you what happened in the last mission dealing. It was mission 3 dealing with this character. All right.
And I'm gonna pull
the first
it up
time we
right
see
now
Marcus.
so people can see some of the chapters that we have done so far. Sorry, I went to the wrong place. So the last chapter we did with him was Shades of Color, which I have up on the screen right now. That was the one that last dealt with Marcus. And again, just to that point, the main reason why I was saying that, I think from a story standpoint, you can kind of jump in based on what we're about to tell you what happened. I think more from the nice Mercy Flush. Okay, I'm jumping off. LOL. No, you don't have to jump off. Hang out in the room.
No, you can hang out for this.
You can hang out in the room. This part
you really haven't missed that much.
And I guess I meant more. If you're going to jump in live and listen to it, please jump in live and listen to it, because you can comment to us and we will respond to you. Like, all joking aside, Mercy Flush, thank you for coming into the room. You can jump in and comment, and that's in and of itself worth it. But I mean, like, if you're listening to this, like you've pulled up on Twitch, or on YouTube, whatever, this episode first, the reason why going back is worth it is because at the end, like Jess said, after we play through the game, we get pretty deep into talking about a lot of different topics as related to the episodes that then we kind of tie back to over the course of these multiple episodes. So you'll kind of get a continuity of not only what we're talking about, but what specifically like our thoughts are on this game itself and what we think these episodes mean, and so on and so forth. I think that there's value to doing that. But if you jump in live, it's always worth jumping in live, specifically just because of the fact that you can communicate with us, type your thoughts into the room. I will respond to you. Jess will respond to you live. That's one of our favorite parts about why we do this, so that people can tell us, hey, like, fuck this guy, or this guy, or David Cage sucks, or David Cage is amazing, or Marcus is an idiot, or whatever. Speaking of Marcus, what I will say is a couple of other things have happened with other characters, but in Marcus's most recent episode, it was essentially, we were given a honey-do list, and that honey-do list was just to go to the store and pick up paint. That was literally
because he's an
episode.
android.
So, yeah,
he's an android, so that's his job.
His job is just do shit because he's told to do it. He was told to go pick up paint. I had to walk through a park, go pick up paint, and at the end of that episode, there was kind of a moment of kind of contention, some strife that took place between humans that felt like androids were kind of taking over their jobs, and they saw this android as an opportunity to, kind of unleash their rage, right? And so a cop eventually, I know we've talked about it in the other episode, but he begrudgingly kind of came forward and was eventually like, all right, you're fucking with somebody's property, leave him alone, let him go. After kind of I had to deal with how I wanted to respond to those people, like, within game, cop came, quote unquote, air quote, saved me, and then I got on a bus and rode, and that was literally the end of the episode, unless I'm forgetting the very end, but I believe it was just getting on the bus, right?
No, that's it.
So that's all you missed when it comes down to what you're about to see with Marcus. As again, you can see on the screen, that was 2 episodes ago. We played another episode that was a totally different character, so go back and listen to the last episode where we played Mission 4, but now we are going to the episode called The Painter, which is going to move Marcus's story forward, and you'll be able to see a little bit. Yeah, painter job, security, Mercy. Yes, it's very weird when you only hear it in a 5-sentence overview of what took place. But basically, yes, they do need to have better security right outside this paint shop because these people are fucking assholes, and I don't like that guy in the skull cap that was like really shitting on me. And he's the biggest dick about the whole thing. So we're gonna go see now how Marcus has handled, I guess, now going back home. I can see just from looking at the front screen on the chapter screen, looks like his house looks pretty baller. So I guess we'll check out what he's all about. So we're going to back out of here, jump in to the main screen, just unless there's something that you are missing. Must brush wall. Yes.
No, I'm ready to see what happens. The beauty of this game, if you're not familiar with it, is that all the choices that Craig is gonna make will have a butterfly effect on the rest of the story.
Yep.
So I've played through the game, but his outcomes and his story may be very different from mine.
Right. And we will discuss that too at the end. That's the beauty of you having played it. We're able to talk about some of the different decisions you made that you did differently than me, or things that you uncovered that maybe I didn't. And so again, go back and listen to some earlier episodes after you're done with this one to see more about some of those butterfly effect differences between our two gameplays, and we will surely do that again. So I guess, is there anything else I'm missing? Otherwise, I can just hit continue and jump right into this.
Oh yeah, don't forget to mention that they should probably go back and listen to earlier episodes.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. So we have done earlier episodes. You guys might want to check. Fucking dick. All right, you ready to go? All right.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, and earlier episodes, go. Dick. Oh wow, this is always. I always forget how fucking anticlimactic it is when I'm like, let's go, and then I hit X, and then
it's
like,
loading,
and it's
all right.
Like 1%.
You guys know any good songs?
Yeah, everyone excited? Get excited,
hey, Craig,
bro.
you know how to whistle?
Yeah, I do. You know what else? This is a great time for us to mention to everybody out there. We've done 4 other episodes that you might want to see.
Oh, good point.
Shit. Okay, November 5th, 2038. Here we go. Let's see. 9:58 a.m. Here we go. Oh, this is the bus that I got on. All right, I'm getting off. Walking all robotic.
This looks much nicer than the section of Detroit that Kara went to.
Yeah, Kara's house was real fucking shitty. This dude's place looks pretty baller as fuck. Right.
He looks like they're definitely going to harass him because he's black walking in that neighborhood.
Yeah. He is walking pretty fucking diesel, though. He's got his arms jacked up. All right, let's see. Let me look at myself in the mirror. Oh,
he goes to a special Android gym.
Yeah.
Flex the muscles.
All right. Just making sure I look like a robot. All right, perfect. Cool. Let's put that shit down. Bellini paints. Colored since 1909. All right. Retrieve order 847 and Bellini package collected. All right. Take care of Carl. Oh, motherfuck. Just got to take care of these people again. Let me look at this. God damn it.
How fucking dope are the decorations in this house, though?
This guy's house is pretty fucking awesome.
This shit, no lie, made me want to get art like this in my house.
Yeah. Jesus, he just has that in the middle of the room like that?
That fucking baller ass aquarium or TV, whatever the fuck that is.
Okay, we got a game. Checkmate in 3 moves for silver? Oh, weird. Okay. Oh, I just figured that out by looking at it? That's pretty cool. Unless that's telling me that's something I'm supposed to do, but I hope not, because I don't fucking know how to play chess, so. Wait, let me spin this. It'd be great if Carl's just like, stop spinning my globe! Because people just yell at the fucking androids all the time. He's getting mad about everything.
Yeah, Kara's fucking owner does.
Yeah, he
yells at her like a motherfucker.
He choked her the fuck out. He was like, stop touching my drugs, bitch!
Don't touch my mouth.
Yeah.
It's my fucking mouth, bitch.
Oh. Marcus knows how to play the piano. Alright, here we go. Let's see what's in. Can I go in there? Yeah, I can. Oh, man. They are not holding me to anything. I'm probably going to get yelled at soon. That's fine.
Oh, more chores simulator.
Yeah, wow, look at me. Oh, wow, I love this game, dude. Jesus Christ. This game is literally just cleaning, the game.
Welcome to life as an android.
You're right. Is there anything over here to do? Nope.
Mercy, was that for real? Mercy's like pawn to queen 9. He's like, no, it's so obvious, guys. I mean, you can checkmate in 3 moves.
I also specifically like that he calls it a prawn. That makes me very happy that he called it a salad. Right.
Prawn is shrimp, isn't it?
Yeah. Shrimp, yes, you're right. Yeah, that's... You ever seen the movie...
or shrimp-like.
Yeah, have you ever seen District 9?
Yeah, oh, fuck.
That's what they call
I definitely
them.
am familiar with the movie. I don't remember I actually watched it.
Yeah, they call them prawns in that movie specifically to be dicks because they're very shrimp-looking, you know, their faces and shit. Is there anything to clean over here? Anything I need to clean? No? Cool. See, I didn't get any credit for cleaning this place up, even though the whole last mission that was
You're
my
still
job.
missing something. Look around.
Oh, don't be
Maybe
a
you
dick.
missed something.
Are you serious?
You didn't take out the trash or something. Oh, that's possible. If it hasn't been checked off, then you didn't clean properly.
God damn it. If you're
Or,
fucking with me,
I
might
mean,
get in
fuck it.
trouble.
Maybe you gotta take care of Carl first.
If you're fucking with me and I'm wandering around for no reason, and Carl's like,
I don't know.
God damn it, Marcus!
For some reason, this part didn't really stick in my head that much as one of the memorable
cleaning
points of the
simulator
game.
part? I can't imagine
Yeah.
why. Alright, fuck this, I'm out. I'm out. Look how I'm fucking walking out like a badass. He's like, fuck this
Yeah.
place.
He looks generally annoyed now. Like, fuck, what else? What else?
Fuck this. Alright, so is this one of those things? I have to remember what I need to do is just buy
That shirt looks cool. I'm gonna get me one of them shirts.
the North Pole.
I
Why
remember,
Russia
once you
wants
pick
it.
this shit up, you can store it in the memory bank so we can look at it later.
Yeah, so I can just... So as soon as I pick it up, right, I'm good?
Yeah. I mean, you can swipe over to see what the other article says.
Alright, cool.
Swipe right. Swipe
That's it,
right.
yeah.
There's a second article. There's two articles in both of them.
Yeah,
There
I
you
did
go.
that. So
There you go.
that's
Life
the two.
found on the
Alright, cool.
Titan.
Alright, and then we can look at that shit later, right?
Yeah.
Alright,
Exactly.
Perfect. I got credit for reading that motherfucking magazine. Alright, so let's see. Is there anything else interesting here? Let me go try. Oh, no, they won't let me. Alright, so he was lying to us. God damn you, Mercy. God damn you, they didn't let me do any moves. I was all excited to.
You sure?
They won't let. No, it didn't even give me the. I think it was just literally him recognizing, like, oh, within 3 moves, he can checkmate.
Huh. I don't think I did that, so I'm not sure. Like, yeah, I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, oh, motherfucker! How many goddamn doors?
I don't know
are
if
there?
I was ever in this room either. I don't think I ever walked in the kitchen. Shit.
It would just be great if he just murders this bird. Oh, they're not real. Wait, are they
Fucking
real? I can't
serial
tell.
killer. That's how
Oh, no,
it
they're
starts.
not. Okay, yeah.
Murders
Exactly. He's
bird.
like, what's that name?
Carl's
It's like
next.
Lenny.
And that's what they meant by take care of Carl.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I took care of
It's
him.
like of
I
mice
took
and
care of
men.
him.
He's like, look at the
Yeah,
birdie
yeah.
birds.
Uh,
Alright, I turned on those fucking things. I feel like I'm getting shit done this time. Got
you're
cool
really good at
jackets
cleaning. You always got a second life as a maid if you want.
on. Yeah, exactly.
The Merry
Alright,
Maid.
Let's go murder fucking Carl. Oh man, Carl needs one of those things. Alright, so Carl's like fucking an old person. He gets to sit on one of those chairs that ride him down the stairs. Oh fuck you,
Like in
Carl.
Gremlins.
Yeah, exactly. Shoot him out the window. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. It's the best part of that fucking movie. Fucking old lady. And they find her just with her legs sticking out comically out of the snow. It's so great. Oh, man.
Gremlins is awesome.
One of the greatest fucking Christmas movies of all time.
Yeah.
I'm just bummed that we didn't mention it in the fucking Discord room when we were going through favorite movies.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. Oh, yeah, he is a fucking old... Alright. God damn it.
You recognize the actor though?
Who? The Carl guy?
Carl.
Not yet. I didn't look at him close enough to see. Let me open his fucking window. Oh, yeah. Fucking...
Good morning,
is that
Carl.
Bishop?
Good morning.
Yes.
10 a.m.
Nice.
The weather is partly cloudy, 54 degrees, 80% humidity with a strong possibility of afternoon showers.
It sounds like a good day to spend in bed.
Wow, yeah, you can tell by his voice to him immediately.
I did go to pick up the paint that you ordered.
Oh, yes, I've forgotten. That is the difference between you and me, right, Marcus? You never forget anything.
Oh, he's much nicer.
Then Bishop. Bishop is nice.
Please, Carl.
No, I mean, he's much nicer than that fucking asshole at Carr's
Carl.
house.
Oh, right.
Thank you.
Yeah, the actor's name is Lance
Just
Hendricks,
don't
by the way.
I'm already
Yep.
gritty, Mike.
Hendricks.
Yep,
No T.
Hendrickson is awesome, yep.
Known for Aliens as Bishop. He was also in Hard Target.
Machine.
Jean-Claude
They
Van
break
Damme.
down so
Oh, he was in
quickly.
Terminator. I don't know.
All
He was a
this
detective
effort
in Terminator.
To keep him going.
Nice.
Hey,
Oh,
what happened to your clothes?
Oh, it's nothing. Just some demonstrators in the street, Carl.
Oh my god, he's so much
What
nicer.
a bunch of idiots. They think they can stop progress by roughing
this
up
guy
a few
kicks ass.
androids. I hope they didn't harm you.
Oh, no, no. They just pushed me around, Carl. I'm fine. Okay. I'll take you to the bathroom now.
Marcus is kind of cool the way he like interacts with him. Like I like his interplay with him, almost like he's like a nurse, you know.
I mean, these are legit actors, which is fucking awesome. So I mean, I'm sure they cost some money to use. I mean, they're not A-listers, but they're legit actors. So I mean, watching these video games, I mean, you know, they're wearing motion capture suits and everything, but they might as well. They could have played this scene out. You might as well be watching them play this scene out with their real faces and real bodies. You know?
Exactly.
Like they even have motion capture stuff on their faces to capture the expressions they're making. So.
Yep. That's how you're able to see when they like furrow their brow and shit like that. Like, I mean, it makes it so much more impactful than if you had just had like a CG bullshit or whatever.
Right.
Anything special on the agenda today?
Yes, there's the opening of your retrospective at the Museum of Modern Art. The gallery director left 4 messages asking to confirm your attendance.
I haven't decided yet. We'll see about that later.
Okay.
What else?
Just your usual fan mail. I've already.
Give me about 45 seconds. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Any news from Leo?
Yeah.
No, Carl. I can call him if you like.
No. No, don't bother.
That's cool as fuck. Just connects right to his wheelchair and takes him down. That's awesome. Alright. Where am I taking him again? Fuck, I already forgot. The dining room, I think it's it. Let's see.
I'm starving.
Well, your breakfast is ready. Bacon and eggs, just the way you like them.
Thank you, Marcus.
You're welcome.
Alright, bacon and eggs, motherfucker. Here it comes. Oh, God. The fucking... Now it's made the game? I gotta bring him fucking breakfast? Eat your goddamn food, Carl. Carl.
Thank you, Marcus.
My fault. I had to take a dragon piss.
There you go.
Because of the mother of all dragons.
Russia unilaterally declared the region part. Oh, okay. Alright, so Russia's being a dick in this game, too, huh? Even in
probably
games, they can't stop being
still alive.
I like how they just annexed the fucking Arctic.
Why don't you find
great.
something to do while I finish my breakfast?
Sure. Okay, Carl.
What did it say to do? I didn't listen. I'll find something to do. Okay. Weird. I already cleaned your goddamn room. Oh, I didn't get yelled at for walking in front of the TV. Awesome. Oh, play. There you go.
Marcus was a little more courteous than to walk in front of the TV.
Fuck. Oh, okay, whoa, look at him go. Holy shit. He is a fucking monster.
Fancy game of chess?
Oh, I don't want to play for real. I don't know how to play.
Speed chess.
Don't make me.
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. Good. Oh, fuck yeah, win. What are you talking about?
That's what I call a thorough beating. It's not easy for an old man to compete with a machine.
Well, I know you don't
See what
like
Mercy
losing
said.
and you don't like when I let you win, so I felt I didn't have many choices.
True.
That's pretty
We
good.
humans are complicated.
Funny how Bishop must have got the gig. Who's the best android dude in town? Hire
One day I
him.
won't be
That's
here to
pretty
take
good.
care of you anymore.
Good point, Mercy.
You'll have to protect yourself.
We're stupid that we
Make
didn't
your
even make that
choices.
comment. That
Decide who
Bishop
you
is the
are.
fucking android, and he's
and what
playing
to become.
against the android in this game.
This world
Yeah, I
doesn't
did think
like
about
those
that,
who have different
but then I had to
morals.
take a piss. But
Don't let
no,
anyone
it's
tell you
ironic
you
that the
should
guy
be.
who was
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Let's go to the studio.
So I have a weird. I'm hoping that this is not going to be one of those where they're just lulling me into thinking that Carl's a nice guy, and it turns out that he's just like sexually assaulting Marcus on a regular basis or something. Because they're like going out of their way to be like, look at how great their relationship is. He's so cool. Like he's always like, he just said like, don't let anyone tell you who to be. Like be yourself and all this shit. I'm like, fuck. He's like a grandpa, and he's gonna end up doing something terrible, but it's fine.
Tough choice for him, right? In a way, where like, do I beat this guy or do I let him win? He's the boss.
Right. Well, that's why
Let's see where we left
they
off.
made him say.
Remove
like,
the
that's why
sheet.
I did the justify where I said,
Right.
he basically straight up said, he's like, well, I know you don't like to lose, but you also don't like me to let you win, so I kind of didn't really have any options. Which I guess the other option that I could have had a draw with him, but again, even having a draw with him is the same thing as letting him win, right? Because he knows I can beat him. So I was like, fuck it, I'll just do it. Because I'm sure he'll learn from the fact that seeing the moves that I'm pulling off. Which is funny that they had the chest there because we talked about in that last episode the thing where we discussed the idea of Deep Blue when Deep Blue beat like Kasparov, the master chess player. So it's funny that they brought that back in again, as the idea of like man against machine in chess or whatever. Which is pretty cool. See,
Didn't they split matches?
Yes, they lost the first one and then came back and won the next two. So the Deep Blue won.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You won best 2 out of 3.
Yep. And part of the interesting thing I think we talked about, which is kind of cool, that part of the reason why he lost the first time Kasparov lost was because Deep Blue did something so badass or so out of character that Kasparov was like, oh shit, he must be seeing 30 moves ahead of me more than I can see. Like, why else would he have done that?
What's your verdict,
And it
Marcus?
turns out that one of their things was, oh, I like that. That's cool.
Yes, there is something about it.
That he
Something I can't
that actually one of
quite
of
define.
their it's like Deep Blue's things to do was
guess I
when it
like
gets
it.
to a point where it can't make a decision that
The
can
truth
actually
is I
win,
have
it
nothing
just
left
makes
to
a
say anymore.
random move.
Each
And
day
that's
that
what it did in
goes
that situation. It
by
made a
brings me
random
closer
move,
to the
but it
end.
tricked him into thinking
I'm
like,
just
oh
an
shit, the
old
computer
man
must be
clinging to his
thinking of something so
brushes.
amazingly smart that I can't even think, and he actually gave up. He like
Enough about
he
me.
gave up the win. He
Let's
like
see if you
gave up the
have any
loss, whatever.
talent.
And I thought that
Give
was
it a
pretty
try.
amazing. That like
Try painting something.
it's kind of partially what a lot of this
What would
stuff
I-
is that we talk about. It's like
painting what?
our
Anything
belief
you want.
of how smart that
Give it a
computers
try.
are is that we will always believe that they're smarter than us, even when it's a glitch, right? Because we'll just assume they're able to calculate so many steps ahead of us that whatever they're doing must be for a reason. And partially, even if they're just doing something as a glitch or a mistake, our brains will be to think that we are fucking, we're too nervous to believe that it could be a glitch. We'll think that it's a fucking, that it's because they're just brilliant, and that's actually why he lost, which I thought was pretty cool. Oh wow! All right, so he's fucking
That is
perfect.
just-
Sorry, I got quiet there because I'm writing some notes for after.
The reality. The painting is
And
not
this
about
touches on some topics I'd like to talk
replicating
about
the
afterwards.
world
Damn, that was
rather than
fast as
interpreting and
fuck.
improving on it. Showing something you see.
Carl, I don't think I can do that. It's not in my program.
Oh, that was
Go
cool.
on, go, try it. Grab that canvas.
That was the most like human response he's had to this point. That like realization of like, I don't know if I can do that. It's actually like not in
Do something
my
for me.
programming.
Close your eyes.
Was kind of cool.
Close your eyes. Trust me. Try to imagine something that doesn't exist, something you've never seen. Now concentrate on how it makes you feel.
Just the graphics on this are fucking so awesome.
That looks almost like a photo.
Yeah, if you walked into the room and this game was like on a 4K TV and you didn't know better, you might almost like really quickly. That's actually happened to me once before. I walked into my boy's house, I looked at the television, and I thought it was a real basketball game on. He had 2K on.
Really? That's cool.
Like it took me a second to figure, for like a second, I thought it was a real basketball game, and then I, started picking up on the things I know because I'm a gamer. Then I'm like, oh wait, that.
Right.
There's not usually a floating triangle over somebody's head like that.
Right. Yes, I agree. Mercy, the graphics and acting make this amazingly immersive. And it is.
Yeah.
It does feel like a cross between watching a movie and playing a game. In a pretty. Oh wow! All right, that's pretty cool.
Oh my God.
Oh, this guy's gonna be a dick. Who's this shitty son? Is this Leo?
Hey, Dad.
Leo.
Yeah, it is dumb Leo.
I didn't hear you come in.
Oh, I was in the neighborhood. I thought I'd stop by. It's been a while, right?
What is he, fucking
You all
cokehead?
right? You don't look so good.
Oh, yeah, I'm fine. Hey, listen, I need some cash, Dad.
He fucking reminds me of, what's his name in Breaking Bad?
What
Jesse.
happened to the money I just gave you?
Oh yeah, right.
He's all fucking.
How dope would that be if they actually had it? He probably would have cost a pretty penny though.
You're
Especially
on
with
it
your
again,
dad.
aren't you?
No, I swear.
Because when they were making
No,
this
don't
like
lie
2
to me,
years
Leo.
ago. or
What
whatever,
difference does it make? I just need some cash. That's all.
he was still.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The answer's no.
What? Why?
Hey, Leo,
You know
suck.
why.
Yeah, I think I do know why.
Because you're a dick.
You'd rather take care of your plastic toy here than your own son, right? Tell me, Dad, what's he got?
I don't know, Mr. White. All I know is
Smarter?
I need my money.
Or obedient, not like me, right?
You fucking bitch,
You know
Mom.
what? This thing
You're kicking
is
me
not your
out.
son. It's a fucking machine.
Leo, that's
Fucking
enough.
mercy said Leo's the kind of Android he'd
Enough.
make. Pinkman.
You don't care about anything except yourself and your goddamn.
This guy's getting roughed up by everybody.
You've
Just
never
fucking
loved
treat him
anyone.
how they want.
You never loved me, Dad.
What's fucking crazy is that like
Never
people,
loved
white people treated black people like this for real, like early 1900s.
Oh yeah. we
Shit,
could just
mid
shove them around.
1900s.
Oh, and well,
Yep.
clearly the whole thing here, right, is like don't respond because it'll get worse if you respond, and like that's what this game
Right.
has been, right? To this point is like, don't respond to the action because they will fucking come back at you twice as hard. There we go. All right, so we just finished that one. I filled in a lot of stuff, which is okay, but not everything. All right.
Yeah. So for those of you looking for a lot of gameplay, like these missions are short.
Right.
But the brunt of, I mean, we spent just about as much, if not more, talking about what we saw,
Right.
kind of debating some of the issues. So, all right, well, let's get into it.
Yep.
This one, we actually did a lot more talking while the game was going on, so we don't have to go back and be like, well, how did that make you feel? Because we already commented on it. So my list that I've written of things that are, that we should explore a little now at this point is smaller than usual, but there's some things that are worth talking about.
Okay.
First, one of the things that jumped out at me, and I'll ask you how you felt about it. Where it's like humans are complicated, like that whole talk, right? That predicament he put you in, and we touched on this already a little bit, but I did like his explanation. It's like humans are complicated, right? In response to you justifying why you didn't let him win. He's like, he's obviously frustrated he didn't win. He's kind of mad at himself.
Right.
And then, and the android is kind of justifying himself like, hey, well, this is why I did it, and he's right. And Carl recognizes that he's right, but he also realizes that he's like, hey, I'm a complicated guy, and I'm still gonna get mad about losing because that's just how it is. It made me think of me in Blood Bowl,
right?
Playing that game and getting these like shitty ass dice. Again, I lost another big deal.
You're an asshole. You're an
asshole. And I was yelling. I was like, it's the same fucking thing all the fucking time.
Fucking time. It's probably the greatest video I've ever seen in my entire
Mercy,
life.
There's a video out there, right, that my wife recorded of me raging out when I was getting diced in one of these Blood Bowl games.
It was amazing.
And then she showed it to Craig when he was over.
Yes.
So he's been he's definitely making moves trying to get her to release the video to him. But I'm very confident knowing he would never put that out on the internet to embarrass me.
Of course not. No. It's not. That's not.
So he purely just wants it for his own joy, right?
Yeah, no, just because it would be fun to watch every once in a while.
Totally would not make clips of it and use it on the show all the time.
I'd never have sound clips saying it's the same fucking thing. Sorry, Jess, I couldn't hear you over the amazing clip of you losing your fucking mind again.
Yeah, but it's funny because I used to tell when I would describe that Blood Bowl game, I'd be like, oh well, it's great because it's like chess, but there's this element of dice that you could have this fucking plan, and it's the perfect plan, and you could be you could be better at the game than your opponent is, but then all of a sudden dice fuck you, and you're forced to just rethink your plan and rework things, in the middle, and this happens constantly throughout the games. So the very thing that I used to laud is what makes the game unique and what makes it better than just normal chess and shit like that, or strategy games or whatever, it ends up being the thing that makes me I've thrown probably a couple of controllers against the wall. I had to get new controllers.
Right.
That's how much that game fucking makes me rage out. But it's
earlier to you today?
No, today was that, when you're so upset that you don't even have emotion left. I was sitting in the chair, slunking, my shoulders were slunched forward, and I was
I'm dead inside. I literally have nothing left inside.
I was
to be mad about.
I felt like that, I'm in an abusive relationship with a game that I want to uninstall, but I'm part of too many communities on it. So I don't want to quit the league in the middle of the season, but I really don't want to play it anymore. I really just don't. So So Mercy's the lose-lose scenarios classic projection of reformation psychology. Damn, we should have had him fucking talking on it. Reinforcing patterns for the mind failing to reinforcing patterns for the mind failing to make sense of true life random environment. In a sense, I want to feel that I'm able to deal with these random scenarios, and I like the supposed randomness of it, but I also want to win, and I want to control my environment. When I don't, I fucking rage out. Right. So it's kind of like I want this chance of failing, but I better win, or else I'll be really angry. Humans are complicated.
The concept of failure, but you don't want to lose, right? The idea of knowing that something random can come into play, but you like to think that you were able to overcome that, right? That's the beauty of it, is when the winning flavor is when you're able to overcome the failure in and of itself or the randomness and win. But it's just a bummer when you don't overcome the randomness and you lose. That's when you're like, fuck! The only reason I lost because of that random bullshit, that random fucking dice roll or whatever. You're like,
right. I got fucked. Right.
I
was getting fucked.
And actually, also one of the things I will say, which I thought on that right out of the gate, that scene felt very much to me as a parent. That felt like a moment of, yes, I mean, obviously in this case Marcus is the younger one, right? Or not younger, but I mean in terms of he seems to be the younger kid, right, compared to Carl's the older adult, man. But in my head that almost felt like when you're playing a game against a child, when you have to hit that point of being like, okay, I can let you win. And does that?
But then you won't learn anything.
You don't learn, you don't get better, or whatever. I can fucking trounce you, right? And then you'll just get mad.
Like
and
that Kobe.
And
you remember that Kobe commercial?
Yeah, exactly.
The commercial with that fucking little kid gets the chance to play one-on-one against Kobe Bryant, and fucking Kobe goes all in on him, dunks on him,
and just gets run over. Yeah, exactly. It's like you could do that too, and so then there's that moment of having to make that decision, how which route do you go and why, right? And so in my head, I thought at the time, and like I said, my position statement in my brain at that time was, this guy seems like a pretty smart guy. He seems like somebody, he straight up said, let's play speed chess. So he knows what he's getting into. And my thought was, this guy seems like a smart guy. in my head, maybe I'm reading into the game more, but I was like, hey, this seems like the kind of thing where like losing to Marcus is still going to be a learning experience, because that's like a really good chess player going up against a fucking, like a grandmaster, right? It's like, yeah, you're gonna fucking destroy me,
right,
but maybe I'm gonna pick up some things from you, and like letting him beat me would have just literally done nothing, because that would be like, well, obviously that's like, I'm not a fucking child, and you're just letting me win for no reason. Whereas the draw almost felt like that's the same thing. Like, what's the, like if I'm gonna just be like, oh, nobody won, then that's that whole, like, it felt in my brain like going, I'm basically like patronizing you, like I'm pretending I couldn't beat you, but I'm not even going far enough to pretend to let you beat me. I'm just saying, oh, we just came to a draw at the end, and that just seems dumb. So it's like, let me just beat him, but also maybe like have it be a good game, and that's why I didn't press it the very first time it popped up. I like let him play longer and then hit it, because I thought that made sense, and he kind of responded the way I thought he should, which was like, yeah, I'm super pissed that I lost, but I'm not pissed at you. I'm pissed at me that I wasn't able to pull off the win. And that's like a natural response. That's an acceptable response, to be like, fuck, I wish I could have won. I know that I probably shouldn't be able to, but I wish I could have. And that's cool. That seems like it made sense to me, and it played the way I kind of wanted it to.
And in most scenarios, that is ultimately right. We're creatures of emotion, but in the end, when time passes, like, unless you did something like, if you get in a boxing match with a dude that's like clearly a pro boxer, right, and you're trying to learn, and the dude fucking unloads on you and causes you brain damage, then in that case you would say, like, I'm not going to hit a point where I feel that guy should have done that, right? But in this case, ultimately you learn, you get better, you push yourself, and it's good that he didn't hold back on you. The boxer who's going to cause you permanent damage or something like that, in that case you should hold back.
Absolutely. Don't be an asshole. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Like, yeah, like right. if I'm going to be like, hey kids, let's go outside and play, like football, and then I'm just gonna fucking and like sack the shit out of my, like a 10-year-old kid, then I'm an asshole. But it's like when you're learning how to, like, hey, let's play basketball. If you want to play, like, you're gonna learn from playing the game. And like, there's a certain age where yes, you let people win because you want kids to enjoy it, and you want them to, like, not just be like, well, this fucking sucks because I'm terrible at it. But then you hit a certain point where it's like you're learning from going against people that are better than you, and like right. by competing, by just beating people, you don't get any better. You are just proving that you have the consistent level of skill that you already had. Whereas losing is a thing where you're like, shit, okay, here's the moment where I could have done something differently and maybe I get better. And like, they seem like clearly they have a dynamic where he would value that. Whereas, yes, I can fully say, if this was last episode and this was a Kara thing, hell yeah, you're like, oh, fuck, I forgot how to play chess, because you don't want to get punched in the throat by that asshole, her owner. Because that guy doesn't seem like the guy who learns from moments of, like, hey, man, maybe I could have been better. This seems like they are more on an equal level, which I think is great. And by the way, I do want to point, because Mercy just put in there, why do American sports hate a draw match so much? I will say, separate from this game, but just kind of on the larger scope, there is probably a pretty big element in American sports or American psychology of, like, the sudden death mentality of, like, there needs to be a winner.
Yeah.
Right? We do really fall pretty heavily into that, even to the point when you look at like people get annoyed when they're like kids sports go to a route where it's like, oh, we play for like, X number of innings, and then if no one's winning after 6 innings, like, it's a draw, and everyone's like, what the fuck do we even play for? Which is like a really dumb way to look at it. It is a weird way to look at it, like that we almost look at it as that the draw is almost a waste of time. And I am not saying that in this. I was specifically saying, Mercy, just to kind of, like, full disclosure on that, I was saying more in this specific situation where one character is a android and the other one is a human being, a draw is just as bad as letting him win. In my mind, I thought he would interpret it that way. You
still let him get the draw, right?
Because just because clearly he knows I'm letting him get a draw, so there's no difference than letting him get the win. It is basically just saying, like, oh, look at me, I fucked up, when I clearly could have.
You're patronizing him either way.
Right, I'm patronizing him either way. I'm not saying the concept of a draw is a bad thing, because I'm saying, hey, look, if we are equally matched, that's like epic to the reason why people love pitching duels in baseball, right? Or like why people love an amazing, like, a football game that goes down where it's like, dude, these two teams are fucking like they're just going down the field and stopping each other, and they can't like get, like, nobody's getting an edge because these two teams are playing at the absolute utmost level of skill. That's cool. I mean, personally, I will also say, like, I love when one person gets the edge on the other by some lucky moment at the end, right? You watch a soccer match, and then at the very last minute, somebody is able to, like, kick a goal with, like, a minute left. That is thrilling in its own right. But I do think there is value to that in the real world, the idea of a draw. Whereas in this world, I more felt like I was saying, yeah, and this letting him win or letting him draw me is basically the same thing as saying, like, you're a little kid and I just have to go easy on you, and I just kind of didn't want to do that. So hopefully that plays out for me. Yep.
This concept that we talked about now of this, like Mercy brought up, with the psychology, right?
Yes.
And I'm not that familiar with the term reformation psychology, and that, but what I will say is, we use this same kind of reasoning, or we face this same kind of dilemma with life, right? I remember when I was a kid, and I was told the story of Adam and Eve, where life was this perfect place until Eve convinced Adam to eat the apple, and then now we live in this world of sin and shit where, like, sometimes life is great and then other times it's like really fucking shitty. But I remember thinking to myself, even as a kid, I'm not sure that I would want to live forever in a place where everything was always happy all the fucking time. Right. And I don't know if that resonates with you, but for me and some other people I talked to over the years, like, the chance that shit can go shitty, you know what? There's a classic line from, like, the movie Parenthood, right? Where they were, like, going through a tough time, and the grandmother comes in and says to Steve Martin, in front of his wife, she says, some kids really liked the merry-go-round, right? It was always safe. It was always nice. It was a nice, comfortable ride. It went around and around, but you always know where the fuck it's going to go, right? And she's like, well, she didn't say that, but she didn't say it like that, but she didn't say where the fuck it's going to go. But, I'm taking some liberties.
Whoa, Grandma.
Like, whoa, Grandma was But she said, I always liked the roller coasters.
Right.
Sometimes you were up, sometimes you were down, but it was always exciting, right? And so that's kind of how I thought life, that's one of the great things about life is, to really appreciate the ups, sometimes you got to be down. And that sounds really fucking good in theory, but then I've been through some downs. And those downs really fucking suck. And then I see some of the shit that's going on around this world, like fucking the school shooters or church massacres or fucking, the separation of children from their fucking parents at the border. And I'm just like, there is evil in this world. There are some fucking horrible, horrible things that happen in this world. And you know what? Older me, I'd take the boring, like, everybody can be happy life over the fucking exciting, shitty life. Because when you lose big.
Right. So I agree with you. I agree with younger version of you almost 100%, but I'm not 100%, right? Like, because there is that moment of me that is like, yeah, as you get older too, especially as you get older, right? The downs they mean more. They are heavier. They are more impactful. They are fucking way more, long-reaching, like, in terms of the impact on you. It's not the same kind of downs you had when you were in high school and it was like, she dumped me, man, and you're like, you'll be over it in a fucking week. Like, you'll find another chick and you'll bang her and you'll be okay. Like that, though, your downs when you're younger are just inherently more survivable, right? When you're older, they are significantly more detrimental in terms of your kind of long-term well-being. But by that same token, the entire idea of happiness is predicated on the concept of sadness. Like, there has to be polar opposites, because if you were just happy all the time, you wouldn't really necessarily know what happiness meant, because you would have nothing to compare it to. You'd just be like, that would just become your new normal, right? That would become your standard. And so like the entire idea is like the whole idea of, like, I mean, to get super deep and whatever, like, people, if you want to tune out, now's your time. But like the reason why people, like, you love someone knowing that you are probably going to lose them at some point, either like you know, you're like they might die, right? Like that, like I mean, that's basically it, right? That you are going to like marry someone and have a family with them, and they may die, and that's going to be the worst possible fucking thing that can ever happen to you. But would you rather do that or never have, you know, I'd rather have loved and lost than never have loved at all, right? That idea of like,
yeah, but would you know, be even better if you never had to lose? Like, I mean, wouldn't it be great if, you know, you know, like I would love to just, for infinity, just be able to always be with my daughter, you know, to never have my dog die on me.
But
you know, to always be with my wife, you know?
But isn't that the idea of, like, you learn not to take things for granted by knowing that they can be taken away from you. And if it was there for infinity, you would guaranteed take it for granted, because when you know it's there forever, you will eventually be like, oh well, this is forever. This is the norm. So what does it matter if I like hang out today with them instead of blowing off and going to the bar and hanging out with my friends? Or what if I just go fuck off to go to, you know, like Vegas for the week, because they'll be there for fucking ever. And so the reason why you have to make choices, and the reason why you have to make like the difficult decisions in your life, is because it is an either or. It is because every moment I spend doing a thing is time that I could be doing something else, and I'm choosing not to do it. And by having to make those decisions, make you really, really, really love the moment that you do choose to spend with like your family or your dog or like your fucking friends or whatever that is. Like those things. If infinity becomes its own shackles, because by its very nature, it is infinity. It will never change. So what is the reason to make any choice, to make any decision? The whole thing, and this is, I mean, yes, we know, I mean, from my point of view, I don't, you know, I have no religious kind of, like, I don't believe in religion. So, like, I can say this knowing that I know this is a big a hook of religion. But the entire benefit of free will is the idea, once you feel like your decisions mean something because they are, like, impactful, that is what makes your decisions have meaning and be like impactful to your life. Because if you just felt like I could do whatever the fuck I want and it means nothing, or my decisions are either made or already made for me, like I was a robot, one of those two things would make you just live your life in a infinite rut of like, just, okay, yep, it's happening. This is going to happen. This line will stretch out forever in front of me, but nothing I do means anything, or it will never change, so why bother? And so the beauty of this idea is that you have to feel, there has to be some risk of losing your life or losing what you like the life that you are currently living, to make that life be enjoyable. Because if it was an infinite cycle of doing the same thing over and over, then humans wouldn't be capable of like enjoying it.
Yeah, I just think in my older years I've transitioned more to wishing it was like I'd take the boring. I've seen enough shit now in my life that, you know.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is talking from a dude when I was younger. You know, like it was like, you know, hey, shit happens. That was my attitude. Shit happens, and you know, life sucks. Sometimes you get dealt a bad hand and just move on.
Right.
You know, but
again, and that's also partially because the things that go wrong as you get older just are more impactful, right? Like we're old enough now. We've lost people that we care about. Like people have died that we care about. We have lost friendships that we care about, not because they've died, but because, you know, you get separate from people, and that hurts a lot more than the shit you had to deal with when you were a kid, because you could bounce back from everything so much easier. So it is inherently normal that as you get older, you're going to wish for a life that is more, you know, kind of stable, and that's just kind of what happens as we get older.
Oh. We seem to have lost.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Hey, oops.
Oh, weird. Oh, yeah. You know what happened? We talked for so long that I wasn't touching my controller, and my controller died, and that's what I had my microphone plugged into. So I apologize. So, but I was just saying, like the things that go wrong as you get older are much worse in general, because they are things like their death and sickness, and, you know, losing your job, or losing, you know, like losing your income that is able to prepare, like to take care of or fend for your family. So it makes sense that as you get older, those things, because the valleys are so much deeper than any valley that we have ever, we've ever gone through. But by its very nature, that also means that the peaks that we hit are going to be much higher, right? Because the ultimate moment of like living like Carl, where you see that your son is an absolute burnout wreck and just comes over to see you when he wants money and he's a fucking asshole and whatever, that must suck. That has to be the worst fucking possible thing, is to be like, I spent my whole life trying to raise you to be a good person and you suck so badly and I am just disappointed in you and that bums me out. But the alternative could be that your kid could be this absolutely amazing person that you're like, man, everything I did paid off. And the only way you can have those peaks are by having the valleys, right? Like you can't, like, would you want to just be like, everyone's okay, they're all right to each other, like, man, you're all right, but like that, just kind of everything regression to the mean would just be so blah and whatever that we wouldn't have any expectations of greatness. Versus if you're like, I know things can go really shitty, and the fact that it went great makes it even more amazing. Like that makes it amazing, because my kid turned out to be amazing, and he could have been a fucking asshole. He could have been the worst, and instead he turned out to be amazing, which makes it that much sweeter. But by that very nature means there has to be somebody who their kid turns out to be a fucking Leo and sucks, because that's the only way you can have the peak and valley, right? Like it has to balance out in some way. Like fucking God will always collect. That's the whole thing. Like they always say, the devil will collect and God will collect. At the end of the day, somebody's getting their fucking, they're getting their payoff at the end, and they're saying, hey, sucks to be you. Your son sucked, but this kid's kid is amazing, and that's how it worked out.
Well, it seems like Mercy agrees with you in the chat, too, and I hope that you're typing more than just telling us I was mortified when I was 22 and thought I was washed up, because now I want to hear the rest of that story.
Yeah.
Regression to the mean, quote of the night.
Just drop that shit. You can't just
Mercy's
be like,
a finance guy, by the way.
And then never.
So when you say regression to the mean, you're right. You're playing right to his heartstrings.
Yeah.
So by the way, so again, there's been debate with Dodicus in this chat about David Cage's storytelling ability. I thought a great storytelling element that he injected in here. I think you'll agree with me. I was amused in a good way, like entertained by you sat down to play chess with this guy, and you were scared that now you were going to have to like engage in a battle of wits.
Right. And
the story made you think everything about that, because everything up until now has been like, if you want to pick up a damn laundry cart, you can fuck that up because you did the controls the wrong way, right? But then it comes to playing this dude in chess, and it's like, hey, you want to beat him? Because you could just beat him.
Right.
Yeah. You know? Right. It's like, oh shit!
Hit the win button. I was like, oh, okay.
And it really gave you an idea.
Right.
No, but I actually thought it was great storytelling, because I was like, it gave you an idea of how fucking easy it is for this android to beat the human.
Right.
How superior in the logic or the straight, memory or that kind of, I guess that would be logical decision tree thinking that the type of thinking that the android has versus the human, the capability.
His logic tree is literally the same way that they were like, hit triangle if you want to hit the win button. And I was like, oh, okay. And to Marcus, he's like, oh, okay, yeah, we're doing the logic thing where I win. And then he just did it. And I was like, oh, that's actually cool.
To him, he's playing the greater tactics. It's like, does winning help me or hurt me in the long run with my relationship with this guy, rather than can I beat him? Because can I beat him is just a regular, it's
clearly a yes. It's a yes or no, right? It's a binary choice. It's just, do I do this because I think it's going to, keep my relationship with him or not? And that is pretty cool. And that did play very well into his idea of everything else to that point is like, pick up the cans. Don't fuck it up, Craig. And I'm like, fuck. They're like, no, man, you already your biggest decision was, do you want to sit down and play chess? That is literally the thing I had to do. Was once I hit sit down, he was already like, yo, I got this, Craig Mack. I could definitely win. You just tell me if I think I should win. And I was like, yes, you should win. That was really cool.
So along that line,
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Unless you had something further on that.
No, I was just going to say about storytelling in general. I was going to say specifically, I do think this episode was a very good hit triangle to win. I'd pay $80 for that game.
That I was just going to put a laughing emoji.
Yeah,
I'm going to do it anyway.
Think this was actually really good.
It's never too late for an emoji.
Never too late. I thought this was good storytelling. This was a good one.
And then, all right, so then from there, so along that line, I'm going to stay with that subject. Then we get into the era, I mean, the area now. So you've got, obviously, you've got the one area where they were sitting in that other room where, you know, looking around the room, there's all things logic. By the way, so when it said find something to do, you chose to, that says play chess, right? That's your choice on there, I think. I chose to read a book. So I never played. That's why I said I didn't remember playing chess against him. I didn't. I chose to read a book instead.
So one of the two options underneath play chess was either read a book or something else.
Read a book was the next one. Was the middle one, and then it would have been. I could have made choices from there. I was forced to pick between The Republic by Plato, The Tragedies of William Shakespeare, and the Odes by John Keats. And I think they had short descriptions of them as well.
Is that the middle?
Yeah, that's the middle one with the three choices. Right. Yes.
Under Win-Lose Draws, whichever book you chose to read. Okay. So those are things that, like, literally you can only choose one of them because it obviously, like, goes to to the next thing after whatever you choose to do. Cool.
Right. And I chose The Republic of Plato, and then I had a talk with Carl about what the book meant and that kind of thing. So there's like these learning moments that I'm learning from. So far you're seeing like the dominance of this machine who can completely dominate the human in one line of thinking, but then the human is completely dominant in this other line of thinking, right?
Like the painting part.
Right, and then you got to the painting part. In my case, like even when we were talking about the book and philosophy and stuff, like the machine grasped the straight logic concepts, the things that were math, right? Because logic is largely math if you follow it correctly, right? Then when you get into like philosophy and art and things, those are the
zeros and ones, right?
Right, and then you know, but then you get into the human's expertise, and this guy is a world-class artist. You know, obviously rich enough he can afford that sick house and that apparatus to keep him painting even when he no longer has use of his legs. Right. You know, and so he's obviously dealing with a master painter, and this guy is teaching this guy now like to go beyond his programming. So I thought the human was smarter in art. What stood out to me though was it seems like the human is able to teach the android the things that go beyond the programming. He's teaching him to think for himself, and it's looking like, I don't know, to me it's looking like Marcus is starting to hit that stage where he's learning and becoming like he's picking up intelligence in the areas. Right. Yeah, in the areas that he's not programmed to do, and now maybe maybe it won't be so long before the human is no longer dominant over the android in that part either. And I'm not sure that the android, or I don't think the android can teach the human to do the things that he does, to have the other kind of intelligence that he does.
Right. So, yeah, because the logical thought could potentially just be a byproduct of the limitations of our brain, right? Whereas emotional thought is something that, I mean, that's what every one of these stories about, you know, the becoming of AI, you know, like the turning on, right, the awareness of an AI and all that kind of stuff, is the idea is that emotion is theoretically a thing that you can teach. Now again, we have never taught like anything else except for humans. Like we've never been able to teach like animals the same understanding of emotion that humans have or whatever. But the idea there is that, you know, the level of intelligence that humans have allow for that cognitive thought about emotion, and AI should theoretically be able to grasp that if we can get it to, you know, comprehend it in that way, right? If they're able to fire off their, you know, neurons in the same way that the brain fires off, you know, their electronic neurons, they should be able to comprehend emotion. And that's why, like I even mentioned when we played it, like I thought that moment where what's his name said, he was like, I'm not sure I can, it's not in my programming to think that way. Like that was a really cool moment of showing Marcus kind of recognizing his failure, or not his failure, his deficiency. Yeah, his deficiency again versus the human brain, but it came across so human, right? Because everything up to that point is very much like he is delivering his lines as a robot would. Like, yes, Carl, Leo did not call. Yes, this came in. Yes, I picked this up. Yes, I made you lunch. Yes, like he was or breakfast. Like he was very cool. Like he wasn't cold like a robot, but he was logical like a robot. He was delivering delivering the action or he was delivering the words in a way that was told that didn't lack emotion. It just lacked like it lacked an understanding of emotion, right? I guess that's like that's the easiest way for me. I don't know if that even makes sense, but like the concept of like you can program something to say something with emotion, but it can still lack the ability to comprehend what that emotion means. And so that's what I feel like he was coming across as a robot.
And that goes, by the way.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Mercy's been hitting some fucking great winners here in the chat. He says, as an android, because this plays right into what you said. As an android, can it ever be possible to internally break programming, even in theory? That goes with. I mean, I think so. I think that plays into what we're talking about. Like, I think that an android can be programmed to improve upon itself and be a learning mechanism.
I mean, we already know about machine learning, right? We already know about machine learning right now, which is in a very limited. It's in a limited subset where it could be, hey, I feed you this program, and then you take the information that I gave you from that program and learn how to solve that program on an infinitely greater basis than anything I could ever teach you to do, based on the limited subset of information I provided you. So now imagine we say, I've taught you how to interact with humans within a subset of interactions. Now take that and learn from that on how to interact on a way that you are essentially now interacting as a human, right? Like that seems like something that is incredibly possible to do.
Yeah, it probably depends on the programming, right? Like if you program the thing to just be a like a robot, which is different from an android, right? It's just a robot. Your job is to move to get this thing, pick it up, bring it here. You are not to learn.
Of course.
You know, then that's different. These are obviously being programmed to learn. Like to learn about their surroundings, to develop,
right?
Or exactly that. All of those things, and I think that kind of leads you to be able to reevaluate and write your own code. So even something, this isn't the exact same thing, but I've talked about this on our podcast in the past. I don't always tell people this, but fuck it for the purposes of this conversation because it's good. But I have like unofficially diagnosed OCD, definitely to the point. And if you've ever looked up OCD in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for mental disorders or whatever, like OCD is. It's not just like, oh, I'm a clean freak, I need to do this, in this way, or like, it's the point when you have developed systems to get you through life, like a process to get you through life, to where the process itself is more important than the reason you developed the process in the first place. So I found myself at one point in my life, and by the way, my OCD became really, really triggered by high depression times in my life. So if my depression went up,
which is normal,
my OCD,
by the way, right? Just for anyone that's listening at home,
it's a way to reassert control over your life.
Right, your brain associates multiple pathways of how you output your interactions with the world. Everything's overlapped. It's all enmeshed on top of one another. So the thing could be that more often than not, most people that have a singular like mental coping mechanism, they usually have multiple versions, right? So if you are like OCD, it is layered on top of depression or vice versa or whatever. And a lot of those things are because these things basically pile on top of each other, right? Because our brains are incredibly complex, and it's also insane that our brains just function at all. Like, it's amazing that the human brain, the way it works, is so crazy. And so the fact that individual neurons and shit like that can go fucking fire off in a different direction, and it causes our brains to interpret things differently, it makes sense that, like, from your point of view, that you're like, so I have this one part of my brain that handles things a certain way, and that is, it is increased when this other part of my brain interprets the world in this other way. Those things kind of pile on top of each other, right? So that
I think what was happening in like short terms or layman's terms is I think it was like the depression. My depression would be based off of some shit I couldn't control in my life happening, and a way for me to reassert control of my life is, it's stick to the system and get through it by sticking to the system, so that I don't have to take as active of a role.
Times, then I'll make sure. right. Then I'll
it's like why video games like what you and the other thing is like it allows you to kind of check your mind out in a way and not deal with it, and fall back on a system. You know how like video games can be for gamers. If you're going through depressing shit in your life as well, video games can be a way of avoiding it because it's like you know like. Yeah, you're hitting buttons and you can kind of fall into this vegetative state where you're just kind of fucking drifting.
Yeah, it's escapism.
You know what I mean?
It's escapism is the most basic, where you're like, I hit X and a thing happens, right? Like a thing that you can't do in the rest of your life, which is like, I do a thing and then a thing will always happen. Because you were like, hey, when I can try, like man, I can do whatever I want. I don't know what the outcome's going to be. But in a game, you're like, I know if I hit circle, he crouches. So at least that I know. If I hit X, he runs. So like it's a way to assert control over a world where you feel like that you don't necessarily, or you're drifting in terms of control in your actual life, which makes sense.
Right. So going back to my issues, I had OCD in a particularly vulnerable way in that like my system for getting things done was dependent on other things like there were triggering mechanisms in my OCD that like I would say, all right, I'm going to do this when this other thing gets done, which then to do this I have to, you know, but usually the thing that would come in from outside and trigger my depression would be something that took away my ability to do one of these things that would trigger my system. So a lot of times, I don't know if I'm making any sense because I don't want to go too into, because it sounds fucking crazy when I say it out loud. Right, and that's another characteristic of OCD. Oh, you mean no, when you actually say no, I think that if I were to tell you, like me waking up in the morning on a daily, when it was really bad, like a few years ago, me waking up in the morning on a daily basis of how much, you know, like I was automating my life, and then when the trigger mechanisms to automate my life, yeah, exactly, like it would sound insane. Right. There was one time when I said it out loud to one of my friends that I really trusted. Actually, he's been on the show before, Hulk Smash. He ended up being best man at my wedding. But you know, it was in a way it was really weird to say it out loud and hear it, and it sounded really horrible to me once I said it out loud. It helped me to deal with it too, like to start to try to make steps to take advantage of it. But yeah, and also his reaction was like it surprised me because he was a lot more empathetic on a level. I didn't realize how many of us deal with he said, you know, he's a guy that I consider really have his shit together, you know, and yet he told me he struggles with that on some level. I think a lot of us do on some level, and it wasn't to the level I was at, but he could relate enough to where he could say, fuck, I could see how that would be really crippling. And from the outside, it was like watching somebody who had you know, like he viewed me as somebody who had a lot of shit going really well in my life. And you know me, in some aspects, you look at me from the outside and you say, fuck, like I got my shit together. I have a lot of really good shit going on in my life. But
also
there's
could
a
be
particular
broke at any point in time based on what you say already. Any given day, you could just be like, well, nothing left. Sorry, just
so there was it was. You know, but at that period in my life, there was something that was really affecting me that also had like a domino effect, and it was like throwing a crowbar right in the fucking, like, it was like I could have had the Death Star, and then somebody flew that fucking X-Wing fighter right into that stupid little, you know, Achilles heel I had left in it. So the way I ultimately dealt with it, once I was able to say it out loud, and once I was able to identify, like, fuck, this is never going to get better. Like, literally, you know, the very thing that is causing the system to stop and break down is also preventing me from, like, the system being able to fix itself, right? So I'm just never going to get better. Like, I'm stuck. This is it. I'm going, and I had a stark realization that if I don't change things, right, the rest of my life is going to be like this. And I was like, fuck. So I had to take the steps. And the way that I did it without just, because you don't just overcome OCD, like you don't just realize, oh, I have OCD and this is how bad it is, so I'm just going to stop OCD, right? So the way I had to adapt, I started creating rules, like I started creating new rules to combat the old rules that were broken.
Okay. So
all right, in my OCD. And when I did that, I went back.
Were they rules that were beneficial to you, or just they were
just competing with? Yes. So if there was like a shitty rule that was like ruining my life, instead of getting rid of, like, because I couldn't bring myself to just get rid of the old rule, I had to feel like I completed it or checked the box, right? I had to create a new rule in my mind that allowed me, that was it was a new path to undo the old rule. So I said, I can do that I can undo that old rule if I do this, and then once I do this, then that old rule has been checked. The box is checked, and that's gone forever.
So let me ask you this:
right?
This is without getting too specific into your life, because I don't want you to have to like uncover too much shit on here. But is that the equivalent of saying, let's say, for example, let's say every morning you're like, the only way I can get out of bed and feel fucking semi-normal is I get out of bed. I have to get out on the right side of bed, and I have to jump 3 times on the edge just to make sure that like I'm good, and then I have to then I walk out and I have my cup of coffee. Like, let's say that was your thing originally. I'm not just making shit up, right?
Right.
That's just weird because it makes me look like a psychopath, and I don't want to do that anymore. So instead,
no. Let's say something happened and I lost my legs in a car accident, and now I can't jump.
So I can't do it. So let's say instead,
so now I'm stuck, right? Now I'm stuck in bed. Like, fuck,
right.
I can't get out of bed unless I jump, and I can't jump.
So instead, I'm going to say I'm going to pull myself out of bed, and I'm going to do 10 like pull-ups on this special bar that I built in. So now it's a beneficial thing that I've done, because it's like helping me get in shape, and it's helping me like physically, it's helping me out, and I am no longer, and I've compensated for the other thing that was like a negative thing that was hurting me before. Is that kind of the thing you're talking about? Is like find a thing that's
I had to do it because I couldn't just replace I couldn't just get rid of the old rule. Right. So in my head, because again, true OCD is like you're locked into the system. So my head won't it's like do not compute. Like, well, just stop doing that. Well, no, because I have to do it. Right. So the new rule had to be like, I'm making a new rule where I can get rid of certain old rules if I do this. So it'll be like, okay, so on every 2 weeks I get to create a new rule, right? So I create a new.
You're playing the game of asshole where, like, every time you were winning,
something
you're
like
like,
that.
the new rule is every time you pick up a card, you got to drink 3 seconds for every number on your card. Man, that sounds great. I wish I could
realize
just make
how
new rules
insane,
all the time.
how fucking insane this sounds. But to somebody who's really locked in a system, the concept of, oh fuck, wait, there is a way out.
Right.
But I just have to create a different pathway to allow myself to unlock it. Because the alternative is submit myself to years of therapy where I'm like trying to where I'm trying to fucking undo this cog and break OCD period of the system. Instead, I can just adapt my system for a quick fix, and now I can get out of bed immediately.
Or the other alternative is to live in a world where you are just you can't exist, right?
You're just like,
I'm stuck in bed every day because I just literally can't get out.
Yeah.
I
wasn't stuck in bed every day, but I was stuck in a rut in terms of certain things.
Well, again, and that's because I don't want to. I'm not trying to dig into your specific. I'm just saying, in the example we're saying, just getting out of bed. So like your only 2 options are either live the rest of your life in a therapy to try to dig your way out of it, and that is where OCD,
to try to like solve the OCD and just go, I'm okay with not living in a system of rigid rules anymore, or I could do the thing where
levels on top of depression, right? Is because that becomes fucking hard to live that way. Like it becomes when you just say.
Well, also it can make you really good at certain things because as an attorney, it makes me really, really fucking good in certain aspects of my life. Much better. It gives me a real big advantage being able to do things the way I do things and approach things.
Mercy just said there has to be rules to change the rules.
Right.
It is an interesting way to look at it, right? Is that you have to, once you can unlock that part of your brain that says, all right, if I'm that tied into the concept of a rule set, then I control, as long as I control the rules, right? It's like playing fucking Monopoly with house rules.
Yeah.
You're like, cool, man. All right, well, if
then I have to make a new rule to solve that old rule.
If I have to do something on Go every single time, if I have to do something on Go, I'm going to make it be something that I fucking decide is cool instead of it being the fucking rule that, like, my shitty fucking cousin that comes over every summer and says, well, when I play on Go, you always do it. And you're like, fuck you, Carl, you're the worst. Well, now I'm going to fucking do the right thing. I'm going to make it be something that I want to do. And so, like, that's our compensating.
So it'd be like tricking yourself out. So like, so for back to our example of like the bed, right? So my new rule would have been something like, from now on, jumping up and down 3 times is also equals 10 pull-ups, right? And then that means that now I can submit. You know what I mean?
So what I needed to do. Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that was how I figured it out. And so anyway, the whole reason this even came up was not so we could do a whole exploration of how Jess is certifiably fucking crazy.
No, fuck it. We're done playing this game. We are now doing a new show called Holy Shit, my co-host is crazy. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
But there's
I don't want to be there. I'm just kidding.
There was a I'm gonna join Kanye and start putting out a bunch of tweets.
Are you gonna hug Trump next, man? You're my dad. You're my dad, Trump.
That's why the system told me I had to do that.
Part of the system.
That's a new rule. I must wear a MAGA hat every Thursday. No. But so that was, I guess, my answer, my long-winded and fucking crazy answer to Mercy saying, "Is it possible to break the programming?" Yeah, I think that's how you do it. Yes. I think the machine that continues to learn. So in some sense, right? I, the human, was and I'm telling you, I don't want to spoil it, but this whole discussion right here will become a much bigger theme in a later mission in this game.
Right.
So that's why I just want to like kind of bookmark this and say we'll come back to this at some point. Right. But yes, I, the human machine who was stuck in my system, my programming of this this losing system, really losing because my environment had changed and made me unfit to survive in that environment.
Right.
Then had to adapt, and instead of just breaking my programming, I grew by my programming learned, and adapted and got better.
And one of the things that I think, so first of all, we could do a whole nother episode on this, and I actually think this would be a great topic to have, like on a regular Live from the Man Cave, just kind of talk about some interesting shit, whatever, like on the podcast side. But like the concept, number one, OCD is kind of
damn. I fucking overshared. Right. That's what I'm thinking right now. Fuck, I overshared.
Holy shit, TMI. But most people do recognize, like most specialists will say, OCD is one of the most, if not the most common, like mental kind of quote unquote affliction that humans suffer from. In the fact that almost everyone has some degree of OCD. It might be, it's to a greater or lesser extent. It's based on things that you like only come in contact with, once a year. So like might be like the way you handle Christmas with the family, and so you only have to handle that once a year. But when you deal with it, that programming comes in and affects you hard, and you get locked into a fucking situation where you have to work your way out of it. And so the idea of what you're saying right now, I want anyone listening to this to know, like, there are also things that I get into my own head about. I get programmed into, like, this is how I have to do it because otherwise it doesn't go well for me. And whatever that becomes, whatever your mind internalizes those things, that is your programming, and that is
you and I have bonded over that before, right? Like we've both had our OCD come into, like, we've created this show, the website, the YouTube channel, the Twitch, everything from scratch. And our OCD is constantly clashed because, like, you have your system and I have my system, and then they meet and we're like, fuck, and then there's this kind of recognition, like, oh, I know where you're coming from, I know why you're doing that.
And also we recognize that sometimes that creates beauty, right? Sometimes there are things where our systems and our programming and our brains and the fucked up shit that's happening in our heads leads to this moment of us like, oh shit, that's kind of amazing if we can just like tweak this one little thing and tweak this one little part and get it to be a thing that we both are like comfortable with. It's what jumpstarts your brain to think in ways that sometimes you wouldn't just on a regular fucking Tuesday, right? Like, it just doesn't happen that way. But you also then have to deal with all of the downstream shit that happens on the days where it's not beautiful. It's fucking shitty. Right. And you're like, why am I getting so pissed off? Why am I getting so pissed off that people all of a sudden moved the books aren't in alphabetical order anymore? Like, why is that a fucking problem? Like, I know every book I own. Like, I can find it. If I have 500 books, which would be a fucking crazy amount of books, that'd be a lot of books. I'll still be able to find it. Why am I so pissed that you put this book in that fucking shelf instead? Like, that's the shit that we do to ourselves, and we get wrapped around the axle on that bullshit. But the whole thing is that we are fucking computers are based upon the human brain. right? Robots, the concept of the robot is based upon the way that we think. They're able to do the calculations infinitely faster, but it doesn't mean that they're doing anything that we don't normally do. They can just do things. Yes, they can do a thing in 10 seconds that might take us a million years, right? But the process is the fucking same. And so that's the entire idea of, can you break programming? Fuck yeah, we do it all the fucking time. Computers do it all the fucking time. And the idea of that, like, they would be able to piece together with all the information they have, be able to say, oh, well, if A plus B equals C, if I add C plus D equals E, and then I add A plus E and whatever, eventually I get to fucking triple A. I've made a leap that wasn't part of my programming, but it's just fucking making equations pop and make sense. That is what the entire idea of why, you know, people infinitely smarter than us, like people like, you know, when you talk about guys like, I'm blanking on his name right
like
now.
Neil deGrasse Tyson,
Neil deGrasse Tyson,
Stephen Hawking,
and Stephen Hawking. Yeah, that was the guy I was trying to think of. Like Stephen Hawking and Neil deGrasse Tyson, these guys who are talking about the eventual rise of AI and how, like, that is going to eventually guaranteed happen. The concept is,
well, with respect, Stephen Hawking no longer you think he's smarter. Well, yeah, that's bad. You know, you get what I'm trying to say.
But yes, I understand. But these guys who have made these thoughts, right? Who have talked about things that are
R.I.P. Stephen Hawking.
Yes, exactly. But the ideas that these guys have had of thinking things farther, you know, like Carl Sagan and these guys who are just more brilliant than we will ever be, even 35 years ago, and you know, will be smarter than us in 100 years. Their whole concept is saying all we're doing is giving them basic building blocks of thought, just like we give a child the basic building blocks of thought, and then eventually that, you know, connections that we've created will compute on a level that will surpass us, right? Like the first thought, and Jess, you're going through it right now. The first thought that when your child makes connections that are not thoughts that you explicitly put into their brains.
Oh yeah.
Like, when it's not a thing, you're like, fuck, I never taught you that. Like, you just made that connection on your own. That's like amazing. One and 1A, that's fucking terrifying because now you're your own person. Like you're not.
You know what my parents did when I said that shit to them?
What?
When I would come up with something that they didn't teach me, something, oh, you think you're so fucking smart, huh?
Well, that's because your parents were the fucking worst.
Yeah.
That's also, by the way, a conversation we've had many times on the show.
More TMI.
We've had that. That's not even TMI anymore. That's well documented on this show. Your parents fucking suck. But
another great description of live from the Man Cave. One guy tries to stay on topic and just derails the show by going into his crazy ass fucking sordid life.
I'm crazy, and my parents suck. Live from the Man Cave.
So, really quick, I want to stay along this. So, Mercy's on a roll today because I did want to address this other thing. I hadn't even thought to bring this up, but I want to see what you think about this. Yeah. He wrote, games like this make me worried. Why switch the birds on? Why were they off?
I thought the same thing. I did think the same thing.
I thought it when I was playing the game. I forgot to I forgot to list it as a thing to talk about because it is worth talking about, definitely.
So this game, we've talked in other episodes. So Mercy, thank you. We've talked in other episodes, and you will hear this if you go back and listen. I've been terrified multiple times in this game, and there's been moments where Jess has made fun of me because I've literally just walked around rooms. I did it today. I mean, you saw when I was like, fuck, I cleaned up everything. Why are they not telling me I cleaned up everything? It's because this game has created a sense of dread that if I don't fucking do everything, somebody's going to get fucking shot. So like,
and there's also a sense of dread that if you take too long doing everything, then somebody's gonna get fucking shot.
No, that's what the other reason why I gave you shit when you were like, maybe you didn't clean up everything. I'm like, you're fucking with me. You're a fucking asshole. You're fucking with me. But I was still walking around the room like a fucking dick.
Carl's gonna come down here and chop off my leg.
Right. I didn't know he was a nice guy yet, so I was like, fuck. Seriously, Jeff, tell me, are you fucking with me? Because is there anything else I should clean up? And you're like, I don't know. Maybe there is. I don't know.
I really didn't remember.
No, it's fucking OCD Jess saying, maybe there's other stuff to clean. I'm like, fuck, maybe there is. Fuck, what do I do? Is it over there? Is it there? What am I looking at? What do I do? So this game has created a moment where every single time I do a thing that seems inconsequential, it is, I think we've even talked about it on the podcast, we've talked about it on the website, definitely, the concept of Chekhov's gun, right? That whole idea of if Chekhov's gun is the story, if you don't know it, you can Google it. I believe I know it's a Star Wars reference, but the idea of Chekhov's gun is if you show in a movie or I guess now in this case we're talking about games, but specifically it came from in a movie or a TV show. If you show a gun, if you linger on a gun in a moment in a game, somebody better use that fucking gun to shoot somebody later, or you're just shitty at telling stories. Right, that's what the story. That's the concept of Chekhov's gun, and then it became well. Then if you recognize Chekhov's gun, sometimes use that to subvert the viewer by showing a gun and then never using
red herring.
It. Right, because then it's a red herring, and then it is our brains are tuned to when we see a thing. Because in the real world, right, I'm standing in the man cave right now. I can look at any fucking thing I want. I can look at a picture. I can stare at the picture on the wall for 35 seconds and walk out of the room, and nothing will happen to that picture. It doesn't mean that picture is going to fall off the wall and land on a fucking outlet that's going to set my house on fire. It doesn't mean that. In a movie,
I'm looking at this crack pipe right now. This crack pipe's not necessarily going to get smoked.
It means it's going to get smoked, though. It probably means
it's probably going to get smoked. All right, let's be honest.
Let's be honest. I mean, that was a bad example. But the situation is in a movie. If you show me a movie, if I stare at a fucking picture on the wall for 30 seconds, that picture better be fucking impactful later on, because if you only have an hour and 45 minutes to tell a story and you waste 30 seconds showing something, it better be impactful, or you're not doing it right. And so this game has created that Chekhov's gun dilemma constantly, where anytime you show me I can do something, I assume I need to do it for a specific reason, or it wouldn't be there. And that's not actually always necessarily true based on the game itself, but I still can't break that thought in my head of being like, fuck, if I see a thing where it shows me press L1 to look at a picture, I better fucking look at it, because later on you're going to ask me a question about it. Because if I can look at it, why would you not show me I could look at it? Because you're not showing me that I could look at that fucking ashtray over there. So obviously that ashtray doesn't mean shit. So that picture must mean something. And so, like, yes, you are totally right, Mercy. I am super freaked out now that by turning those on, that those fucking birds are going to fly out of the thing and murder somebody, or if I didn't turn them on, they would have fucking not flown out and murdered somebody that I needed to be murdered.
Or even just the concept. Like, I was thinking in terms of like a regular situation in this android world, right? Now you have created these android animals that are probably just as alive as the androids or whatever, but like you're just like, I have no use for you, and I don't want to hear you chirping as a decoration. I'm just want to fucking turn you off.
Right.
Like, you're not on like I do with a toy or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not playing like my kid might do with like, one of those toys that makes noise that I shut off every chance I get.
Oh man, I step on those all the time. I'm like, oh, sorry, your fucking shitty toys, bro.
So anyway, so that this doesn't turn into too long of an excessive show. I mean, it's definitely the digressions that we've taken have been fucking awesome, and I'm really glad that we did. But moving along though, I did want to what did you feel about the quote? Painting is not just about replicating what you see; it's about interpreting, and putting your own way. And that's, I guess, again, another example of how the artist was able to, show his intellectual or his artistic dominance over the straight logical mathematical machine.
So the only problem I do have with that,
trying to teach him.
Right. The only problem I do have with that is that emotionally or like, no, that's wrong. Intellectually, I totally agree with what he's saying, and I thought that was like a really impactful moment, right? Because it was the moment when he, like, I thought it actually I felt something when he was like, close your eyes, imagine something that doesn't exist that you've never seen, and try to paint that, right? Because your skill set in terms of replicating a thing is obviously perfect. Now try to imagine something.
He might as well have been a laser printer or whatever, because he painted that desk. And by the way, I also chose a desk. So I don't know. I don't remember why I chose a desk. I don't know if you had a special reason for choosing it, but I chose a desk.
I just thought it looked cool. Like when I looked at, you chose it also? Because the other things you could have done were, what was it? It was
copy Carl's painting, which I didn't want to do, because if I did it better than him, or if I did, some take on it, or whatever, it was going to put me versus him, which again I didn't want to get into.
And the statue just looked boring to me, so that just didn't look fun.
Yeah.
That's why I passed that one by, and I was like, the desk actually looks like a thing that is kind of like, it's pretty because it's got all the like different colors of paint and shit like that. I was like, that actually looks cool, and then he replicated it perfectly, which is cool. The one
which,
thing,
by the way,
for me,
showing the world stats, 32% of the world chose the desk.
I know.
Most people chose the statue. 40%.
We were the second. Yeah, we were the second lowest.
But out of my friends,
I want to bring that up.
43%.
I do want to bring that up in a minute. So I am going to go through actually because I think it's always fun when we do. 100% of people, did the copy of the desk. But what I will say is we will go through those because I do think that's interesting to go through where what I did compares to the world. So I'm going to run through everything real quick in a minute. But the one thing I was going to say about that the part that didn't resonate as well with me from an emotional standpoint, because I said intellectually, it made sense. The idea of like, this is what humans are good at, is like picture something that like is, you're not just replicating a thing like you're a copy machine. You are interpreting something, which means you're going to have your own spin on it. I agree with him on that. The downside is that like from an artistic standpoint, like we're just talking literally Craig Mack's like preferences. I prefer people that are mechanically, artistically, like proficient, more than I do people that are like artistically proficient. If that makes sense.
Do you have a favorite painting?
So, like for example, one of my favorite painters of all time is Norman Rockwell, because I think Norman Rockwell is able to take. I mean, again, that's also a part of it's because it's like a throwback to a time that's like, it's like he was able to show a moment of Americana and all that kind of stuff and whatever, but like
because he's more than just rote mechanic. Like his thing was choosing probably his subjects, the choosing of the subjects, the placement of the subjects, and more what they meant.
Two kids sitting on a log that are like fishing, and he just like found that, the beauty in that and painted that, right? Or like a kid sitting next to a cop in a soda shop, sharing like a soda, talking to the police officer, and his kid's like 6 years old and a police officer. Like you're right. It was who he picked and who he depicted is what made it so beautiful. But when you look at that, and I guess I'm being a little bit like reductive in it, but when you look at what he did, it was much more he picked these beautiful moments and then replicated them in a way that
he drew the fuck out of them.
Right. He drew the shit out of it. I mean, it's fucking perfect, and it looks picture perfect. Yes, I mean, he had his own style. Like he would change like people. Like I mean, if you look at his depiction of a person, it doesn't look like a photograph of a person. He had a style. Like he turned it up to like 12. You know what I mean? But like that's what he did. Whereas like
you're real up on the mic, by the way.
Oh,
sorry.
No worries. So is that better?
Yeah, much better,
okay.
Much better.
So when you look at somebody like when you look at like guys like Dali and stuff like that, right? Salvador Dali. Which is far
those
more...
are my favorites.
Right. See,
Salvador Dali, Vincent van Gogh.
Right.
I love that. I love their shit. Like Starry Night is one of my favorite paintings ever.
Right.
And that is not a rote depiction. Again, and now especially I find it. See, back in the day for me, and I definitely don't get me wrong, I have a great appreciation for somebody that can draw an amazingly realistic photo, like a picture that almost looks like a photo, and it's almost indistinguishable from photo by how they were able to do that by hand. Because that takes talent. Like for a human to do something that a machine can do. The only a machine can normally do is just fucking amazing. Like that's a talent, right? So I give it all the props in the world, and it looks dope as fuck and everything. But we're also in an age where machines can do all that shit. So I almost like I prefer the things that machines can't do.
Yes,
which is Starry Night.
I agree. And so I will say too, as I've gotten older, and you're right, as fax machines and copy machines and shit like that, which like when we were little. We're not as prevalent, and now it's fucking everywhere, right? Has that's grown to its prevalence that it currently exists at? I have grown to appreciate the idea of like a melting clock, right? Like the idea of a thing that can't exist in the real world that you were able to like just purely conjure out of your own brain. I think that's kind of amazing. The one thing I will fully say,
and by the way, I know that you're referencing Dali in that one, but I did want to go back to one of the paintings now that, by the way, I just had to mention. You and Jim got me like hooked on is now one of my favorites is the Scream.
Oh, the Screaming Man.
Because I had somehow I fucking missed that the first time. No, the Scream.
Yeah.
By Edvard Munch.
Which is
I hadn't seen that somehow until before you fucking you guys put it on to me. Yeah.
And I mean, I told you, and people don't know, like I have here in the man cave, I have a picture that it's kind of a parody of that, but it's like the Joker screaming with instead of the moon in the background, it is the bat signal, and so like I love that picture. I love the Scream. I think it's amazing. Those kinds of things I think are amazing because they are interpretations of reality in a way that is not reality, and I think that's great. A thing that I can fully say right now, which was I was about to say before, a thing that I can tell you right now, I will never like, or not that I will never like, because who knows what's going to happen in 20 years, but a thing that I've never liked in my entire life up to this point are things where someone's like, I don't know, it's just a blue painting. But what it really means is
it's about the color terms.
Right, but it's about like the way humans feel. Like I don't see it that way. Like I don't grasp things. And I'm not being a dick. Like I'm not being an asshole. Like in the way I know people are like, it's fucking blue. Like my kid could do. I don't mean it that way. I'm not saying like a fucking child could do. I'm just saying it literally just doesn't resonate. It doesn't connect with me. I don't feel where I'm like, oh, it makes me feel something. I'm just like, no, it's just fucking blue. Like it just looks like you just painted like, canvas blue. I don't get what the fuck. Why is this $1 million? Like I don't get it. Whereas like interpretations of reality are cool because like the Scream doesn't look like picture perfect at all. But it's fucking cool and beautiful and it evokes emotion. And it makes you be like, man, what the fuck? Like that guy looks badass as shit. Like that's cool. In a way that
screams to me, no pun intended, fucking inner turmoil. That's what that made me feel.
Right. And it's an emotion.
It didn't make me feel inner turmoil. It made me empathize with because turmoil. We've talked about, we've talked about my dealing with depression and shit like that, and that painting really. It said something to me. It struck
that is one. I mean, obviously one of my favorite. I own it in the house, and I love it.
Right.
And I agree. So even I guess back to my original point being that I'm like, oh man, I love mechanical skills, but as much as I love mechanical skills, as I've gotten older, I've been able to recognize things that make me like, think a little bit more. And looking at something mechanically doesn't necessarily make you think. It just makes you look. Makes you enjoy the moment. In the same way that looking at a beautiful photograph does, but looking at something that is a little bit more interpretational makes you think, right? Because you have to think, what does this make me feel? And so I think I'm more on the, if you look at it as the left is mechanical and on the right is purely, just fucking, like I said, I mean, kind of now I'm being a dick, but, or at least reductive, but on the right is a fucking painting that is all blue, right? If that's the right and the left is a fucking Norman Rockwell or whatever, I would say I am the left half from middle to the left. You know what I mean? I'm like middle everything where you're looking at shit like The Scream, which is a cool interpretation of real life, and everything left of that, I'm definitely down with all of that. It's stuff that gets a little bit too much, like, where you're just like, I don't know, it looks like it could be spin art. I'm like, I mean, that's cool, but like, I can make that for $12, so like I don't know. That's great. Like, and I guess my brain isn't wired to think about it in any deeper way, which I guess maybe that sucks for me. Maybe I'm not a deep enough person to be able to see what that means. But I guess art's supposed to be all in the eye of the beholder, so that's cool.
By the way, one of the fucking coolest paintings that I've owned before, and I don't think I have it anymore, but you can always get these like in Times Square. I ran across. I don't know if you can always get them, but I ran across a particular painter who used to make the solar system with coffee cans. He had different shaped coffee cans, and he was like, I think I saw him in New York City just walking around. There's some great artists just sitting around in Times Square just drawing their works and shit like that. You can get some amazing shit out there. I got some like drawings of like cool things around New York that they painted with. But yeah, dude made like the fucking different planets with the coffee cans and with like and spray paint and like using it was just fucking amazing watching him do this fucking painting. I guess he'd done it enough that like he was able to knock the shit out in 5 minutes with me watching, and It really was really cool, and it had like the spray. It was like spray acrylic, so it even had a texture to it.
That's
and when
cool.
I hung it up on my wall, and back then I had like a black light because I was young enough, you know what I mean, to still have a black light in one of the rooms. You know what I mean?
Cool.
It fucking yeah, and I was like, and then like you would shine it over the fucking picture. It was like amazing. So I don't know, different things, different ways that people approach it is also really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. Taking shit outside the box is always going to be more interesting to me than straightforwardly just kind of, you know, like depicting an image, because it's like, man, the fact that you perceived this thing in this weird way and like you were like, man, cans could be the planets. That's cool as fuck, right? Like, that's, like that is what art is, right? It's interpretation. That it's all in the way that you perceive a thing. That there are things that to us, you know, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and that whole idea of like a thing that I might throw out, somebody else is like, man, I can make this into a fucking piece of art, is kind of amazing. And I think that's why we will always live in this world of constant growth of humans versus robots, right? Like, in going back to the game, the idea of like what we can do and the way we can perceive things, that is our strength right now, that we can perceive outside the box shit that is, you know, not capable by like quote unquote AI right now. Is that going to persist forever? Probably not. Almost certainly not. I mean, if you ask certain people that know far more than we do about it, but that's the one hook that we have over a computer right now. When you're looking at something purely logical, yes, eventually you can brute force your way, right? Just like eventually a computer, if you give it enough opportunities, can figure out every password I have, right? They can just figure it out. You just sit them in front of it and say, hey, it can only be up to 8 letters and one of them has to be a fucking, you know, special character. Figure it out, and you'll eventually figure out that Craig Mack uses, you know, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 exclamation point every single time. You'll be good. But like that is
his actual password, by the way.
It is. Fuck, please don't try to log into my email because you're gonna fuck. I shouldn't have said it on a podcast. But anyway, but like the beauty is that we're able to perceive things not in a brute force way. We're able to like perceive, you know, like differences in our, you know, we're thinking on planes of existence, whereas a computer is thinking on a linear path, trying to just eventually cover every possible path, right? We are jumping from like, oh, I was looking at it on the regular plane, I just jumped to the fucking 4D level of planes, where now I'm thinking about things where fucking cans are planets, and a robot's like, the fuck, that doesn't even make sense. Like, why the fuck would you do that?
And by the way, I just posted that link. I found the guy on YouTube. I think it might be the same guy. I think it's the same guy. It's NYC Arts.
Awesome.
Yeah, and he's drawn in Times Square. It's probably the same guy, because that looks like the painting I had.
Nice.
It looks like one of the paintings I had, so it's pretty cool. Check it out. So anyway, I only have one more big picture question to ask for a discussion. But before we do that, I mean, go ahead and let's do your thing, which is run through kind of like the choices you made stats wise and compare.
So if you are watching this live, I'm going to read off. If you're not watching it, well, obviously you're watching this either way, but if you're not watching it live, I'm going to read off what we're talking about. We are looking at what we did up to this point throughout the choices in the painter. Obviously, right now to this point, it still seems like, I don't know if I can change this. I don't know, Jess, you can maybe shed some light. The public opinion is still skeptical. Is that kind of a story-driven thing that I can't change that based on what I did, right?
Wait, where at? Where
up
the
in
public
the top corner,
opinion?
directly under the painter, it says.
No, that's.
I believe that's story, right? That's story-driven. That's like based on where we are in the story.
Right.
The public is still skeptical. Okay.
Skeptical of androids and shit like that, right?
Which makes sense. Like, I haven't done anything that's going to change the public's view.
Right.
All right. So we're going to jump in and see what the world stats are right now. So as of right now, I dropped off the painting. Everyone had to do that. We had to wake up Carl. So 72% of people activated the Burge. So to Mercy's standpoint, 72% of people are freaking out right now about what the fuck did the Burge mean, right? So that makes sense.
I activated it too.
And then just about a little bit over 50%, 57% of people read the North Pole book, and 49% of people read the Life on Titan story, which we read.
Oh shit! So I gotta look those up for you. Okay, I'll look up those up for you.
Look those up while I go through these.
Yeah.
So everyone has to serve breakfast. Apparently, that's not an option. but Carl noticing Marcus's clothes based on based on the way I sat down and started talking to him, I guess 68% of people had Carl noticing Marcus's clothes as opposed to just like walking into him and not interacting with him.
That could have been also due to like the choice you made in that mission of, remember you didn't have to come across that mob.
Yes, you're right. Okay. So maybe you're right. So maybe it could be that if you bypass the mob altogether, then Carl would never notice Marcus's clothes, which was kind of an impactful moment because that was the first moment you get to realize where he's like, those fucking assholes keep fucking with you. Like, it was kind of cool for you to know that he cares about Marcus, which was cool.
Right.
So it looks like this is a first big low is 23% of people chose to play chess. So it's very low, which leads to the next.
Yeah, but also it's three different choices you could only make one of.
Right.
So that's why it's like that.
True, but why? So then why this one is very low? Then why does it make sense that under the win, lose, or draw is 9% of people chose to win, 5% of people chose to lose, and 9% of people chose to draw?
Oh, that's probably out of the 23%. 18. Yeah, that's why.
Right. Oh, so that's of the total 100%. Okay. So
right, because some of them would have never got that choice.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's that I don't necessarily love. They do it that way. It would have made more sense if they said of the 23% of people, what percentage of people choose to win, lose, or draw? Because I don't care.
I think the whole point of this is that I know what you're saying.
I guess
their algorithm is going to be like how many of the world made this choice, and most of them didn't even get the choice.
So most people chose an equal number of people chose to win or draw, and the least number of people, only 5% of people chose to lose. So I guess that makes sense. So that makes sense because in my thought process, my only two options that made sense were either win or draw. Like I said, lose was the only one I was definitely not going to do. And then I was like, well, draw just seems like also losing, so let me win. So it makes sense that that's kind of the way that it broke down for people. So what was so the middle option was to read the book, you said. What was the percentage?
Right, and I don't know what.
Oh, you don't have that up? Don't worry.
I can't get to that screen because I think it was
I think it's more it's fine.
Actually, you know what? Why don't we use this opportunity for me to address it because I've got the magazines up, so we can actually just really quickly talk about that, and then I can get back to the screen with you.
Yep.
So the first article that you read was the North Pole, Why Russia Wants It. Basically, it's an article about Russia having an interest in the North Pole because they recently discovered these precious materials that were trapped in the frozen ice, many of which are used in synthesizing thirium, which is something that basically gives the androids their life. Okay. So android manufacture increasingly dominates both the U.S. and Russian economies. So at this point, remember, now we've talked about the Apple, the iPhone store, and the comparison and all that stuff. So these androids are not only commonplace for everybody to have, but they're actually driving the economy, right? Surprise, surprise, free labor, or not free because they've been bought, but shit, it's a parallel slavery, yeah, right, in a way, Again, back to whether they're alive or not. No, let's not do that now because we'll have time to do it in future. But anyway, so that gives you an insight. That's what that article is about. It's about why Russia wants the access to those. Add this to the strategic importance of the region.
Are they just literally what's the word? Annexing it like Crimea, like happening currently right now. They just straight up are like, yeah, we're just taking over the North Pole.
I want to see. There are other articles that go into it a little more. This is a continuing conflict, but basically Russia wants the North Pole is what this article is about.
Wow, that's fucking badass.
And so add this to the strategic importance of the region, which connects Russia with Europe through Norway and Denmark, Greenland, as well as Canada, and the prospect of a peaceful resolution to the dispute starts to seem unlikely. That's the worries.
Right.
So there's the kind of this I guess you could draw a parallel to Russia wanting Ukraine.
Right.
Right. NATO is optimistic, however, saying both nations stand to benefit from a stable, productive Arctic region. A conflict would benefit nobody. And the President of the United States, President Warren, recently torpedoed the notion. It's simple. Russia has no business in the Arctic. If the Kremlin doesn't understand that, we will make them understand.
Right.
So,
it's weird.
So that's that article.
The weird comparison to the Ukraine is that the Ukraine is an established, it's an established country in an area where, yes, they don't technically clearly have any control over now, but it is tangentially related to them, right? Whereas in this world in the game that we're playing right now, the North Pole is clearly established as a
not
no man's
right.
land. Like, everyone get the fuck out. Like, nobody controls this. If you come in here, you are clearly like breaking multiple fucking, you know, treaties that are out there of like, you can't just decide that the North Pole is like, in the same way that we have treaties that say like nobody can just show up and be like, yo, the moon, that's ours. Like, we own the moon now. Everyone would be like, well, now we have to fight you because fuck you, the moon's not yours. So it's kind of interesting that this game has kind of taken the Russian kind of expansionism, which they're really the only country right now in the you know, the current era, you know, in 2018, they're the only country right now that is existing in a world of expansionism, right? Because all of us have kind of established that the countries that own who owns what and who is their own, you know, their own country. And Russia has decided to be like, fuck you, we're going to march into Crimea, we're going to go into the Ukraine, we're going to take whatever we want. And everyone's kind of like, this is kind of a bad form, Russia. So they've like just taken that to the next level of being like, imagine if they just decided to be like, I don't know, fuck you, Santa.
And then you got China with is it Tibet?
Right. But that's a little bit that's kind of been going on long enough where that's you know, that kind of predates the current era of expansionism, because they've been doing that for a long. They've assumed that they own them for fucking ever. So, whereas Russia marching into, you know, the like going into Crimea.
Yeah, it's a new thing. Like
Right, going into
and
Syria,
it's also precipitated
like
because they all used
Syria,
to be.
That was them being fucking aggressively fucking.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Right. That wasn't like we have a pre-owned. Yeah. We don't previously own them. They were just saying fuck you. We just don't care. We're doing what we want to do.
Right. So moving on. So the next article that you looked at was called "Life Found on the Titan." Yeah. So they there's life. The article says "Life Found on the Titan: Evidence for Alien Life Grows." So there's a probe called the Darwin. Right? Yeah, so it's a probe. It's a probe called the Darwin, which left 19 years ago to probe the surface of the Titan's methane ice. Has just confirmed the presence of microorganisms living hundreds of kilometers below the surface in an ocean of salt water protected by a thick layer of ice. Oh, cool. After similar microbial matter was found on the Enceladus, on Enceladus, another satellite of Saturn. So so the Titan and Enceladus are both satellites of Saturn, it looks like. Right, yep. Seems increasingly possible that life is common in the universe.
Right.
A NASA spokesman responded to the story and said the latest in a series of pointers to life on other planets, our Android expedition to Io is one among many voyages carrying a prime objective of uncovering these extraterrestrial life forms. And then the director of humanization at CyberLife, which is the company that makes the androids, Jason Graff is the director. Jason Graff, rather. So the company was committed to its partnership with NASA. Our spacefaring androids are specially designed to function on the long-range missions of this kind, and we're proud to have our models at the frontier of human exploration. So, really quick before we get into the main part of the article, I thought it was cool that, you know, again, if you're going to use androids, this is knowing that I've recently actually. Yeah, I recently had a long talk with somebody who works on nuclear projects for the I want to say the Air Force is it's for DoD. But anyway, he was talking about how he was just like educating me on how much of a toll on somebody's life being an astronaut or a pilot.
Yeah.
Even a pilot and a stewardess. I didn't know this. Shortens your life significantly.
Right.
Like they die younger on average than most people. Because of their constant exposure to the radiation and the higher levels, like at higher altitudes, which I didn't realize. So sending androids out on these kind of long-range missions kind of eliminates, like, not just the whole, you know, all of the other ways that you could die when you're an astronaut, but, like, you know, just the simple fact that even if you make it back, like, you're not coming back, like, your body's taking a toll just being up there that long. And the androids kind of solves that. That'd be a good use for them. Definitely as we develop them, I think, in the future. But the main source of the article is life found on the Titan and the microorganisms. Doesn't this parallel something that happened in real life where they found microorganisms on a planet? I thought I remember that.
Was the potential for life on Mars that they found, right? Was
okay. That's what I thought.
They found water, which would then lead to the possibility for life to be to be there, which I do think. So one of the cool things about this story, the fact that so what is this, 2038, right? I think we said
right
earlier.
2030, so it's 20 years in advance,
20 years
right?
in the future, which is cool that they didn't go to the route where they're like, oh, we found fucking aliens, right? Like the fact that they're like, no, we found like microorganisms, which is the way this story should be 20 years from now. Would be
so more good writing.
Yeah, we're not.
Do I hear more of an endorsement of good writing here by David Cage?
So I wouldn't necessarily say it's good. So no, I'm not even being a dick about it. I'm not saying that this is necessarily good writing. It's just like that's good storytelling, right? Like that is like if you're going to tell a story that it's 2038. You're not doing you're not doing a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away bullshit where you're like, oh, there's fucking, there's aliens with fucking 3 heads and shit like that. Like the fact that he's telling it in a way where he's making it plausible when you're reading this to say, hey, 20 years from now, yeah, it's pretty plausible that like humanity humanity would basically be finding like microorganisms on a planet, not necessarily finding little green men, right? And so that's kind of cool.
Right.
Like it's a commitment to that he knows the route that his story is living in, and he is committed to it staying within a route that makes sense. And so like that's kind of cool because when I first just saw that cover page, I was like, oh, is this going to be Mass Effect where it's like, oh, we found the fucking, these aliens that are fucking, they speak, but they speak in a different language, and they're like whatever, and they have to wear these fucking suits because they can't breathe in our atmosphere. No, he's just like, no, all we found were fucking biological microorganisms, but that would be fucking like world changing to us if we found that kind of shit living on a fucking another planet. That's pretty cool. I like that. That's I give him props for that. So well done.
All right. So now getting back to our world stats. So now because I'm done with those articles.
Yep.
So you asked what percentage of people read the book. It's telling me world stats 31%.
Okay.
Read the book, and 41% of my friends read the book.
Nice. All right. So so if I go to my friends don't help because on the live man cave it's literally just you. So mine says 0% of people play chess. So I guess you chose not to read it. So
gotcha.
All right. So when we get to the next section where there are questions, it gets to the paint something you see.
I just in doing the math, dude. Now that I think about it, 31% read the book, 23% did played chess, right? So that's 54%. That's a big 46% did the other thing that both you and I didn't do.
That we don't know what it is.
This must have been whatever. I guess probably maybe play the piano or some shit like that. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. Good call. Could be. That's actually.
I don't know.
See, this is what makes you want to replay the game, right? Is when you don't know what the other options are. And I do like that they show you choices, but don't actually always show you what those choices are.
Right.
Sometimes they do show what the other options that you didn't choose are, like in the next thing we're about to show in in the painting, but sometimes they lock out the things you didn't do, which is kind of a cool reason to like go back and play it again, right, and see what if I had done this, what would this have changed the story?
And in case you're curious, out of when I chose to read the book, 35% of the people read the book I picked, The Republic by Plato. Those are world stats. No, I'm sorry, those are friend stats. Oh, let me try again. 11%. So out of the 31% of the world that read the book, 11%. So 11 of the 31 chose the book I chose, The Republic by Plato. 13 chose The Tragedies of William Shakespeare, which I don't like Shakespeare personally. And then the 5 of that 31% picked Odes by John Keats.
Nice. That's pretty cool. See, this is why it's cool. Like, this is one of the most fun things in this game is seeing what you did versus what the rest of the world did, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, because I'm not going to lie, I do depict some degree of correctness based on the world, right? Like, I feel like that I make the right decision if the rest of the world.
If you agree with most people,
and it's
yeah,
not,
that part of me,
true.
like I like to do different shit from the world,
right.
So I like kind of get disappointed sometimes when.
And so this is the thing we've talked about in this game. If you're listening to this now, you've heard us talk about this before. This relates quite a bit to Telltale games, right? Dearly departed, Telltale no longer around.
Yeah.
But Telltale games would do this.
Also, R.I.P. Stephen Hawking.
Yes, true. Yes.
Yes, I didn't say that before.
You did say that before. But so in this case, Telltale, who is not a person, so we don't have to necessarily say RIP about, but we can
still,
say it anyway.
RIP.
You're right, RIP Telltale. But so Telltale would show you this at the end, where they would show you the decisions you made, like, oh, you saved Duck, like 85% of the people also did, or whatever, right? And so there is that element where you could either go one of two ways, right? There were times where you were like, oh man, I did the thing that the rest of the world did. Nice. All right, I made the right decision. And there were other times where you like wanted to buck the system and be like, fuck you, I did a thing that the rest of you fucking assholes made the wrong choice. And I was smart about it. So it's kind of cool where they paint you in this corner playing this game where you get to see like, what did I do? Like which route am I putting myself in? Did I choose what everyone did, or did I choose what no one did? The worst case is where you're like right in the middle, you know, where you just did like a thing that like a third of the people did, so you're like, fuck, I don't know if that means anything. Like that's not helpful at all. But on this case,
I also like contrasting world stats versus friend stats, because we talked about this, right? Like, especially in a game where these involve like real world choices that are based like on real political issues or real like
fucking assholes.
No, it's more like it gives you an idea. Like, am I surrounding myself? Like, are the people that I'm around? Yeah, am I like around a bunch of people that just think like me? And I also, it's like those people that were really, really surprised when Trump got elected.
Right.
They lived in this. For them, it was impossible. It's like you don't get out there much that you think that only people think like you.
Right.
There are a lot of people that don't think like you, and that's why it's important to not just have friends. I think that only echo your viewpoints. So it's kind of like a good social experiment too. See, like if you know all of your friends have all of the same choices that you have, and then like the world stats are starkly different, like you may want to just take note that maybe some of the ways you view these issues are not really what most people think.
Right. So
again, this is skewed because it's gamers that would play this game in the first place. That you know, so you know.
Absolutely.
Take that with a grain of
salt. But it is interesting. I mean, for me, because if I go in it, literally my friend stats are going to be like 100% you. But if I played it under my Craig Mack account, it'd be interesting to see when I have a lot more friends to see what that comparison is. You're right. To see like, am I living in an echo chamber where everyone's like, well, of course I played chess, right? You're like, well, I mean, that's cool. On one hand, that's cool. That like, hey, we all thought the same way. On the other hand, maybe I should like, you know, connect with people that are thinking slightly differently and making different decisions and kind of get their perspective on these things, right? Like, why did you make that decision? Why? Yes, we're not going to change the world by finding out that, oh, you read a book and I played chess. Like, that's not going to change anything. But it's kind of interesting to see why you did it, because that's where our brains are at, right? Like that's where we're making decisions based on these like deeper level of interactions in this game, and you're hoping that it makes sense. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I just put in the chat, you know, to maybe solve that issue, maybe we need to start getting some more friends for the PSN gamer account. So yeah, hit us up with a friend request. That Live Man Cave is our gamer account. Also, if you get the chance, follow us here on Twitch too. Go ahead, click that follow button.
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
Please
so anyway,
do.
keep.
All right, so let's go
keep pushing.
All right. So the next thing I did, paint something you see on our side. It is that it looks like it's kind of an even split, like, you know, slightly more. We were right in the middle, but 27% of people copied Carl's painting, 32% of people did what I did, which was copy the desk, and 40% of people copied the statue. So it's not a crazy
47% of my friends copied the desk.
Right. So. And surprisingly, 100% of my friends copied the desk because it's just you. But it seems like copy the desk was like the easy.
We'll change that.
Right down the middle. It was right down the middle. So then paint from the heart, which was the thing we just talked about, which was after you had to paint the thing that was right in front of you. He said paint a thing that you feel connected to. I chose to paint something that I identified with, my own personal identify.
I chose the same thing.
So so androids, people chose 10% of the time. Humanity, 31% of the time. Identity made the most sense to me. And like I said at the time, it made sense because androids was like choosing a artificial decision. That would be like somebody saying to me like, Craig Mack, paint something that you like that you can imagine. I'm like, well, let me paint white people. I'm like, well, why would I do that, right? And like humanity would be like choose the thing that you think the other person wants you to paint, right? So it'd be like the fake.
And for me though, I thought that again, I've been in the mindset with these characters. Like, I'm not just choosing what Serious Jess would choose.
Right.
I'm choosing what I think the character would choose. Right. And so
and
I would
Marcus
think
is going
like
through a crisis of identity, right? That was my thought. So that's why I was
right,
like,
but I also was thinking, as far as humanity, I was thinking that's something he doesn't really understand necessarily or know.
Right.
So in that case, it would be like the white guy trying to paint the picture of black struggle,
right?
And then you're like, right,
paint a picture of a Black Panther, and you're like, I don't know, but I'm doing it because I feel like I'm supposed to, and you're like, well, that's
right.
That's actually detrimental to the process of you understanding it if you're just painting a thing that you don't understand. Like in this case, I was like, paint your own internal struggle and then let it go from there. So it makes sense that,
right.
That's why I chose that, and 57% of the world kind of chose that, which is kind of cool. Like to see that most people were like, in this moment of, internalization, paint what you're going through before you can think about what other people are going through, right?
Yeah, to me it made the most sense, right? Because the androids is the just painting androids to me is, again, going back to the thing he told you don't do. Don't just replicate, right? And then humanity is so far-fetched that you don't know anything about it. You're going to fuck that up, right? And then, but identity, your crisis itself, is something that you understand very well and is completely open interpretations. To me, that's the right answer.
Right.
Out of all three.
That is, absolutely. And also, that's actually, so it's super, super interesting that you said it that way, that androids felt like painting an abstract to me, but the way you just said it is great, because that is just repainting the thing right in front of you, right? That's just repainting the image in the mirror, but not painting yourself. That's painting the way that everyone else perceives you, or that you're supposed to be perceived. You're right. That's just painting the apple on the table, right? It's not It's not thinking about it. It's not internalizing it. It's just saying, oh, I'm just going to paint what androids are. And so that's kind of awesome. So like this game really does make you think, which is it's cool. It makes you think while it's happening, and then if you're smart and you play this game well, it should make you think after the fact, as the way we're doing it right now. Like when you kind of.
So that's exactly why I was like, this would be perfect for our Ready Player 2 series, because like I finished this game wanting to go back and like explore these concepts again, and to like maybe see what the different choices made. And I was like, but it would suck me going back through it by myself and just playing it and making choices just to make choices, or trying to do things better this time around or whatever. You know, what'd be even better is to like have one of my friends, right, and who better than my co-host fucking do the shit, and and just ask and have this fucking So I thought this is just perfect.
So before, because I haven't gone to this one next, I haven't gone to this screen. I don't know yet. Even if I scrolled over there, if you guys have seen it at home, I haven't seen this yet. This was probably my most interesting decision I had to make this entire episode. Was when he said paint your identity, and then he said, okay, go ahead and paint something that you feel strongly about, and then I had to choose from there. And those choices, I'm going to see if I can. Okay, so I can move it over without you seeing the numbers yet. It was either, again, it was still androids. So your identity.
You could turn the numbers off, so you could not risk.
Well, no,
just click
but I just scrolled over enough. I just scrolled over enough that I didn't turn them off. I didn't have to turn them off. So identity. Do you identify as an android? Do you identify as despair? Do you identify with doubts about yourself, or do you identify as a prisoner within your own home, right? And so I chose doubt, and specifically because of that, in my head, back to your point that you just said, I was perceiving that Marcus is like, he's kind of doubting his place in society. He's doubting his place as like, is he learning about himself in a way where your first thought would be doubt, right? Like I'm learning things, and so is that like, that can't be possible. Who am I? What am I? What is this all about? Like, what does this mean? I didn't necessarily think, based on his relationship, he would definitely not think he was a prisoner. I didn't think. Maybe in the wider world, but like at home,
I agree with that.
I thought that he would feel like, this is my safe space, is here, right? Despair is kind of almost hand in hand with that. That he didn't come across to me as a guy who is despair. like filled with despair for where his lot in life is, more that he would be like upset or doubtful about the wider world, right? And then androids, again, I think we already covered that. Like, I think he has decided he doesn't perceive himself just as an arbitrary android as being an android. He perceives himself as Marcus, right? And so Marcus is Carl, and then you deal with that from there. So to me,
and Carl's been feeding him all of this like view, like to me doubts. Like Carl has been feeding doubts about his identity, like because he could just be an android and he doesn't just picture himself in that. Like and he's having doubts about what it means and all. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I picked the same thing.
What does it mean to be an android and all that? And so that literally was like clearly just doubt to me. So I picked that, and that's by far of that 57% of people that chose identity. That's
almost half.
It's almost half of the number. It's 25% of people chose doubts, whereas the next one down is prisoner, 12%, which that actually blows my mind. If you chose identity and then also chose prisoner, I actually don't understand if you're playing the same game I am, but that's okay. That's okay. That's people's thoughts. That's okay. And then androids was 10%, and then despair was 8%. So again, actually, I am very surprised of the 12 and 10%.
The prisoner was so high. Yeah.
12 and 10 don't make sense.
The 10 could, because I mean it could just be somebody saying, I'm painting my identity as an android. How I see myself as an android.
But if you've already been given the option to say paint from the art and not choose android, why would you choose it on the second tier? You're right.
I get it.
Once you choose identity, maybe then you say, well, no. But now that I'm not just painting androids as a construct. I'm choosing my identity as an android. Maybe that makes sense. That actually makes a little bit more sense as I kind of verbally talk through it. But
these are world stats. Who knows how deeply people thought into this? Right. Maybe they were just like, look, I don't give a fuck at this point. I'm just going to base something.
The prisoner one makes no sense to me. That is actually like I actually don't know where it's fucking coming from.
So that was my reaction to or my thinking, but I could see how somebody could say, I mean, you
played the first
remember
few
like back
also, yes, you're right. And the other episodes show
back in slavery times, right? There were nice slave owners that they were nice, like they tried to be nice to their slaves. They were still slave owners. And those slaves, as much as, when they had the chance to leave, they said, the white people were like, but why? I gave you such a great home here. Why would you leave? Like,
all right, so I apologize for everything I just said, because you are right. Stockholm Syndrome does not change the fact that you are still a prisoner. Just because somebody is nice to you doesn't necessarily mean. So you're right. You know what? Yes. I still, based on all that, I still wouldn't have chosen it. Because I still feel like,
but I can see how somebody might say, "Fuck that."
Somebody would say yes. And I've said this on many podcasts before. I've said this on this show before. I'm a white guy, so my perception is going to be painted from that perception. But from that point of view, But I can see somebody coming from a different point of view, maybe, that says, "Hey, just because he's fucking not a piece of shit, he still paid for me and still owes me." And still gets to tell me to go fucking pick up paint, and I have to come back with it. So fuck him. I'm still a prisoner. So that makes sense.
And even having this as a choice to me is a fucking brilliant move by the game.
Right.
Like again, another ding point for David Cage.
All right.
Oh man, Don would be fucking in this chat right now if he was here. Oh, there'd be comments aplenty. But David Cage wins. Dod's not around to try to down him, so again, David Cage wins.
So anytime Dod's not around,
all right. So at the end, Leo always comes and intrudes to ask for money.
That's the end of it. Yep.
Which leads me to the final kind of conundrum, so it's gonna make it kind of like a two-parter. Like, what do you think about the Carl character overall?
I like him a lot. So, like I said, my only fear is that they're doing a bait and switch to be like, hey, he's super nice, but in reality, he's like, he's kind of an asshole.
Oh, I love that cynicism that has you. You and I have seen so much bad shit happen in the world that when we see somebody this nice, You know, you're just like, what is his fucking angle? He's fucking Marcus at night, like raping him every night or some shit. Or,
I mean, I made that joke during the episode, and that wasn't actually a joke. Was I was like, if it's gonna be that he's just anally raping him every episode or every night at the end,
you hope they're not setting you up for the fucking flip, because David Cage has done that in Heavy Rain, right?
Absolutely. He's like, hey, this guy seems like a great guy who's trying to save these kids and help them find. Oh my God, he's the murderer! Fuck you! Like that.
So Dodicus would say it would be right up his expectation for David Cage to have Carl turn into the biggest fucking shitbag. And
absolutely. Now the one thing that does, I guess, like go fly a little bit in the face of that is that the Leo storyline of like Leo showing up and being kind of a dick, and Carl still in the face of Leo being a dick is still the nice
right.
Carl
So that becomes you were looking for the flaw. The flaw is not that he's actually a shitty guy. It's that. So this is where I was going to point out. This was how ironic that this man that's introduced to us and that looks like the greatest teacher, the greatest father. Like he is literally mentoring this android to teach him to be such a good human. You're seeing this android flourish under his tutelage, and then the son comes in, and you're like, what the fuck did he do with this guy? Like, was he gone most of his life? Right. How do you get that dude with the other dude? And
you, as a parent, right? You understand it too. You can only do as much as you can do. Like, you do what you do, and kids are just gonna take their own path. And like sometimes you are shitty and you make your kid be shitty, and that is an indisputable fact that parents ruin kids just as much as they don't, right? That is a 50-50 split on how much parents can be either great and make their kids great, and shitty and make their kids shitty. But there are just as many times on the other 50%, right, where parents can just do a great job and their kids just make bad decisions. So like Carl can be a great dad who just connected with Marcus, and just for whatever reason Leo just didn't connect with him, right? He just went his own route and made bad decisions, and now he's this fucking scumbag that we now have to deal with for the rest of this game. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Carl was a fucking asshole. Now, it could be Carl was a fucking asshole and just sucked back in the day.
You never know.
And now he's learned from what he did wrong and is trying to make up for it, right? In the way that it's like, oh, I fucked over my first kid, but now that I'm remarried, I'm fucking great with my second kid. Like, there are ways that people handle different situations, but if anything, the game has put me down a path of being like, well, Carl seems to, because the moment where you think somebody is the bad guy is when you only see them interact with one person. Because part of you thinks like, well, is this just their fucking the bullshit, the what's the word I'm looking for? The false narrative, right? The unreliable narrator, where like Marcus is only hearing what Carl wants to say to him, but to the rest of the world, he's a fucking scumbag. Well, the moment you bring a third character into it, and as far as we see, Carl is still a really good person too. Even with that third person in the mix, he's still kind of like, you suck. No, I'm not going to give you money. Stop being a dick to Marcus, whatever. That leads you some, like credence to say, all right, well, Carl's actually good. Leo is just a bad apple. So I'm hoping.
And also from a storytelling perspective, right? You're like, usually when they have somebody that's this golden boy character, like what Carl seems like at first, and you're scared, where's his flaw? He's got to have a flaw, right? He's not just perfect character. And then you see this guy show up, you're like, oh, there's his flaw. So his flaw is not necessarily that it's going to be that he's a shitty guy secretly. It's that he has a shitty son, stemming from,
weak link. Yeah,
right.
His weak link is his son, not his character flaw.
Right. And to me, again, this goes back to we described the graphics and what they're able to do with the facial expressions now by hooking up like the little electrodes to somebody's face, a bunch of them, so that, but such an amazing.
That's all right.
What's that?
I like that you call it electrodes, like you sound like 1,000 years old. You're like, I love when they put the electrodes on the face.
No, I thought that's what they're called, the dots, emotions. Right? The electrode dots.
No, it's
but
not.
With this game and specifically, there's like a.
It's the motion capture.
No,
the motion capture balls.
Well, yeah.
It's not electrodes, but that's okay. It's all right.
Oh, okay. Well, or whatever it is. They had a fucking long ass featurette on the shit about how this game kind of pushed, like they did more with the mushkets for the face than most games do, to allow us to see that. But I saw shame on Carl's face when Leo was leaving.
Absolutely.
It was embarrassment, like shame, not just because like for many things that came across to me, like he failed his son. Why is his son this way? And also embarrassment, like it's like being a physical trainer for somebody, and you've been preaching to this person, you got to eat right, you got to do this, you got to do that, and then your fat son walks in drinking a fucking big gulp and a fucking eating a fucking foot-long hot dog, sloppy as shit, on his second heart attack and shit like that, and then leaves, and then now you look like you just lost all kinds of credibility for anything you're saying, because look at these motherfuckers, look at this motherfucker that you supposedly mentored, right? And I kind of felt like it was all of those emotions creeping in on him, shame, personally, and then in front of
Right, and the moment where I noticed it more than anything too was when he shoved Marcus, and he was like, "That's enough," like Leo, whatever, and that was the moment where I saw where he's like, "Fuck," right? Like that's the moment where, and again, I don't mean to kind of dwell on this. If you are at home listening to this and you don't have kids, you can ignore all of the bullshit where Jess and I talk about the kid thing, right? But that
puts everything into perspective.
That's your moment, right? That's your moment where you're like, I've taught you so much, and then when I am mentoring you on how to be good, and my kid just shoves another kid or steals a toy from them or says some mean shit to them, and I'm like, fuck, like. Not only, yes, that's embarrassing to me as a person, as Craig Mack, that's embarrassing, but more importantly, right, hopefully more importantly, that's just like, what did I fucking do wrong? Like, what did I do that I can convey this message so much to this other little kid that's just like, the little big brother that I take care of every once in a while. I show up and try to help out. But my kid comes in, is just like, fucking give me that truck because he's a fucking dick. Like, what the fuck did I do wrong? And that's what that moment conveyed to me, was this despair of seeing your own flesh and blood not be able to live up to the
the ideals that you live by and try to instill in others.
Instill on everyone, and this other person, like in this case, yes, an android, but in reality, it would be like, oh, this other kid that I'm able to connect with, and they get it, and they're cool, and I'm proud of this kid, and I've helped them, but my kid fucking sucks compared to that. So you're going to have abstract second level shame, but there's always going to be that internal level of shame that you're like, did I fuck something up? Did I do something wrong? Did I not spend enough time? Did I not sell this message enough? What did I do wrong? And I think this game, at least this episode or whatever, this mission, really sold that moment of being like, fuck! What did I do? Up to that point when I was like, oh, he's probably fucking him, that's where we're going to find out that, Carl sucks. That moment changed everything for me, where I was like, nah, Carl just sucks because he feels terrible that whatever he did with his son, or whatever he did with Marcus, he couldn't have done with his son, and that has to be fucking heartbreaking. And
this is it's like if Malia Obama, all of a sudden in a couple of years becomes a fucking Fox News pundit and fucking heads up the Tea Party and shit like that. It's like Barack.
And, what does that mean about me? What does that mean for me? Right? What does that mean for me? All the messages that I sold. Yeah. Yes, we can. Is kind of like, oh fuck, no, we can't. And that's good.
Oh fuck. It also reminded me of that Family Guy episode where fucking Stewie, where Lois starts to volunteer at Stewie's kindergarten or whatever, and then the other little kid loves her and looks up to her and shit like that. She becomes this special little helper for the week, and then Stewie, who normally hates his mom and plots on her death all the time, all of a sudden gets jealous.
Right.
Yeah. That's how this kid reacted. Oh, you're fucking android that you love so much. You'll never be your son, right?
You fucking asshole. Yeah, and that was such a normal reaction, right? It was like, fuck this android, he's not your son. It's like, well, you're also a dick.
Come on, Mr. White.
Right. You're a dick, Leo. Like, you treat him like shit, and you think that that's going to make him love you. But Leo, as much as Leo sucks, and I hated Leo the moment he walked in the room, but, like, that is also a normal reaction, right? It's, like, totally normal to be like, but fuck you. Like, you give him everything, and you won't even give me money when I'm asking for it. And, like, no, I'm not giving you money because you
I don't
suck.
think, in all fairness, it seems like not the first time that he's...
But, no, and that's my point. That was my point. Is I'm saying, I'm not giving you money, Leo, because you fucking suck as a human being. But that doesn't mean that Leo still won't be upset by that, right? And so that's the idea, again, when we get into the idea of, like, how do humans think, that humans are complicated beings and all that shit, right? Humans are fucking complicated. We can suck. We can do dumb shit. We can still also get jealous. And so, like, that was what that moment was a, you know, a human being becoming jealous, even knowing that their jealousy is based upon their own failings as a person, doesn't change that you're still going to be jealous. And I kind of thought that was, like, that was well told in a way that wasn't, it wasn't, like, heavy-handed in some of the ways that, you know, some of the other stuff I've made fun of in earlier episodes where I was like, we get it, all right. Like, we've even had that conversation about some of his stuff is a little bit too much, like, on the nose. This episode was a one that was very nuanced and well told throughout. I thought it was like they touched on all the things, the kind of surrogate son versus the, you know, the prodigal son returns type bullshit, and, like, the false, you know, the false prophet son returns and he's a mess, and, like, all these different things that you have this family dynamic happening in a way that it was actually probably the most interesting episode to me that we've played to this point in terms of, like, terms of the way the story is told. I think they told a lot in a very short amount of time, you know, in a quarter of the time that we've talked about it, they told the story.
Dude, this is the longest episode we've done, and I mean, I really thought this was gonna be a lot faster, but there was just so much to cover. A lot of it came from Mercy having some great comments in the chat. Absolutely. We really appreciate you guys. Dot has joined us in the past, and we've had other people join in the past. It'd be great.
You should.
So
by the
again,
way,
thanks
if
for
you're at
watching.
home listening to this, after the fact, you should fucking join this. Join the room next time. We will post. You should join us on our Discord channel, which we will post also in this room. We will let you know about it, but we will let you know when we're going to do these shows. The best thing that these episodes are is when people join the room and share their thoughts on it, because it gets a really good dialogue going, and we get some good thoughts that are, you know, we're going to have our own thoughts, and sometimes, you know, Jess, you and I, sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree, but when a third person comes in and has a third option or a fifth option or a 10th option or whatever, like, it just adds to this whole dynamic of what we talk about. So definitely, if you get a chance, man, jump in. We're just, you know, kicking it out to anyone out there. Just come into the room and, you know, join what we're talking about, because you're going to think about something that we probably haven't even considered. So that would be great.
And this is a concept that I'll probably repeat at some, like, on the start of the next show or whatever. But I just want to say that if you're like, you know what, these guys are 5 missions in now, I don't really have time to go back and listen to all the debates about all the issues that have happened before, but I want to listen into a future episode and be caught up. I mean, shit, the actual gameplay on each one is maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Right.
Maybe even less than that. So if you really just want to go back, watch the gameplay, and then start in on the extracurricular.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you can just watch the gameplay part on the earlier issues just to know the story and what you're dealing with, and then jump in on the discussion on the future episodes. But this has been a lot of fun. Next time you'll join us, Mission 6 will be called Partners, and we're going to get back to Connor and what's going on with Connor's life. And these episodes keep getting interesting. I mean, Craig, if you like this one as your favorite so far, they're just going to keep getting more interesting and more topics for us to talk about.
Nice. So I will say this, of all things, and I think to anyone listening, one of the best parts of this game is that whether or not you actually like the gameplay or even the story of the game, it's less important than the concepts and the storylines that it allows us to talk about, right? So I think this game is probably, let's say, 30% as interesting as you and I, our discussion about the game is, right? And that's not to say the game is bad. What I'm saying is that it opens up so many great ideas for us to talk about, that is where this game is great. That's what's so great.
Yeah, it's a launching pad for discussions. It's amazing.
For discussions that are about things that are more important than the game in and of itself is. And so that, and most games are not that, right? Most games are what they are. They live and die by the story they tell, and it is what it is. And your conversations with your friends about that game are just retelling the moments that you thought were impactful, and that's it. And this game, at least, if at the very least, and I know this kind of goes back to that conversation we had with Whacker all the way back when we were hanging out, on the bar that day, is that the thing that's great about this game is that it opens up these conversations that are so much deeper than things that you normally get into in games, and that in and of itself is worthwhile playing it. So definitely check it out. Join us anytime you can. I'm already interested in what's happening in this story, specifically because I'm interested in what we can, the routes we can talk about next time. So, man, I'm pretty pumped.
Yes, sir. Thanks for joining us, everybody. If you want to hear more of me and Craig Mack just talking about general shit, shit going on in the news, pop culture, TV, movies, all that shit, we got a podcast. Yes. You can find it on any podcast app, including iTunes. The name of the podcast is Live from the Man Cave. Man Cave, all one word, and it's got 3 exclamation points. There's like some people that came along later and named their podcast something similar. Don't be tricked. It's the one with Craig Mack and Serious Jest. But I typed the name. I typed the name in our chat right here so you can see it, what it looks like. Also, you can go directly to our website, www.livemancave.com, and you can find it there.
Yep.
I got nothing else. Thanks for joining us. You got anything else before we sign off?
Now we're good. We're going to be doing some more regular podcast shit coming out soon. We have an epic episode that's been coming out over the last 4 weeks. So
episode 27,
it's kind of a crazy one. But we have a new one we're going to be recording soon, our own little kind of post-holiday episode. So we're going to be talking about some of our favorite movies, video games, TV shows, kind of shit for 2018. So we're going to recap some shit. So you get a little.
And then eventually we also got to get back to Live from the MCU, where you watch. We suckered Craig Mack into playing a role-playing game.
Suckered is right. Is very right.
Based on the Marvel Comics universe, and we play villains.
That's how they got me. I love comics, and they fucking suckered me in. Just when I think I get out, they pull me back in. So we have a lot of shit happening right now. So right now, we basically have...
My villain has a cock strap.
It is.
Just in case that seals the deal for you.
We have
if you're thinking about listening, my villain is a cock strap.
It is pretty much what's happening right now. We have 3 separate things happening right now. One of them is the cockstrap storyline that's happening. All the rest of us are just peripheral to that shit. And we have our video game thing happening with the Ready Player 2. And then we have the podcast kind of right in the middle, kind of straddling everything. So check that out. Come check us out, Live from the Man Cave, livemancave.com. Like Jess said, worst case scenario, just subscribe on our podcast feed, and you'll kind of see what's coming out there, and you get a chance to see what we're doing, get to listen to the regular podcast when we're not just playing video games. But other than that, I guess just Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We're going to be doing a couple of these episodes hopefully over the next week. We're going to do another episode of this, so we'll be doing another one, Ready Player 2, out there soon. And then probably a week after that, we're going to be recording a new Live from the Man Cave. So we got a lot of shit coming at you. So just check us out. And
a lot of beer.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to find something interesting. Worst case scenario, best case, you'll find, man, I really like when these guys get drunk because they start babbling at the end. So that's
I don't want this show to end, Greg.
Come on, man.
Mother of Dragons.
Just say something else. Say something else just so we can keep talking.
Mother of Dragons is good.
This is 2 hours and 51 minutes right now. We should probably end this. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. You have been listening to Live from the Man Cave. And that's pretty much it, right, dude?
Yes, sir.
All right. Peace.